The emergency room doors exploded open at 11:47 p.m., and three black SUVs surrounded Mercy Ridge Hospital like a war zone perimeter. Armed soldiers poured out, rifles ready, eyes scanning. The head nurse stumbled backward, clipboard clattering to the floor. "What the hell is—" A colonel cut her off. "Where's Carter?" Confused silence. "The nurse you just fired, Sarah Carter." More silence. Then someone laughed nervously. "You mean the clumsy one? She couldn't even—" The colonel's jaw tightened. "That woman just saved a federal asset's life, and you threw her out in the rain like garbage." The laughter died. Outside, Sarah stood soaking wet, watching soldiers march past her into the hospital she'd been dragged out of 20 minutes ago. Her hands weren't shaking anymore. Before we dive in, if you're loving this story, stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this tale travels. Like if you believe the underestimated always rise. Now let's go back to where it all started. The coffee machine in the Mercy Ridge Hospital break room had been broken for 3 weeks, but nobody bothered fixing it because the night shift didn't matter. At least that's what Dr. Marcus Brennan said when Sarah Carter mentioned it during rounds. He didn't even look up from his tablet. If you spent less time worried about coffee and more time not dropping IV bags, maybe we'd take you seriously. The two residents behind him snickered. Sarah's fingers tightened around her patient chart, but she said nothing. She never did. It was easier that way, safer. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting that particular shade of institutional green that made everyone look half dead. Sarah had worked at Mercy Ridge for 8 months, and in that time she'd learned exactly where she stood, at the bottom. The quiet one, the slow one, the nurse who flinched when people raised their voices and took too long to find veins. Dr. Brennan brushed past her, deliberately bumping her shoulder hard enough that her charts scattered across the floor. "Oops, clumsy." Sarah knelt to gather the papers, her dark hair falling forward to hide her face. She could feel their eyes on her back, judging, dismissing. If they only knew. But they didn't, and that was the point. Mercy Ridge sat on the eastern edge of Crestfall, a shipping city where the rain never really stopped, and the fog rolled in thick enough to hide things. The hospital served the port workers, the fishermen, the truck drivers passing through. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't cutting edge. It was functional, understaffed, and running on the fumes of people who'd stopped caring years ago. Sarah fit right in, or at least she appeared to. She finished her rounds at midnight, checking on Mr. Alvarez in 304, stable, finally, and Mrs. Chen in 311, who kept asking for her daughter who'd moved to Portland 5 years ago and never called. Sarah held her hand for 10 minutes, murmuring soft reassurances until the old woman's breathing evened out. "You're too soft." The voice came from the doorway. Jenna Park, the charge nurse, arms crossed. "She's not going to remember this tomorrow." "I will," Sarah said quietly. Jenna rolled her eyes. "Brennan's looking for you. Something about misfiled paperwork." Sarah's stomach dropped. Not again. She found Dr. Brennan in his office, door open, clearly waiting. He was young for a chief resident, 34, sharp-featured, the kind of handsome that knew it. He'd transferred from a hospital in Seattle 6 months ago, bringing with him an ego the size of the Pacific and a mean streak that seemed to grow daily. "Come in. Close the door." Sarah did. The office smelled like expensive cologne and stale ambition. "The Patterson file," Brennan said, not looking up. "You logged his medication wrong. Again." "I double-checked." "Are you arguing with me?" Sarah's jaw clenched. "No." "Good. Because I'm getting tired of cleaning up your mistakes." He finally looked at her, eyes cold. "You know what I think? I think you're in over your head. I think you got this job because they were desperate, not because you're qualified." Every word was calculated, every pause deliberate. "I'm recommending your termination." The words hung in the air like smoke. Sarah's heart hammered, but her voice stayed level. "When?" "End of the week. Unless you quit first, save yourself the embarrassment." She wanted to tell him what she really thought, wanted to explain exactly what she saw when she looked at him. A small man playing king in a forgotten castle. But she'd learned a long time ago that some battles weren't worth fighting. "Understood," she said. His smile was vicious. "You can go." Sarah walked out, her steps measured, her breathing controlled. Old training kicking in. Stay calm. Assess. Adapt. The hallway was empty except for the distant beep of monitors and the shuffle of the overnight cleaning crew. She made it to the supply closet before her hands started shaking. Not from fear, from rage. 8 months of this. 8 months of biting her tongue, playing small, pretending to be something she wasn't. Why? Because Sarah Carter wasn't supposed to exist anymore. The woman who'd walked into Mercy Ridge Hospital with a nursing degree and a soft smile had a different name once. Different life. Different purpose. Staff Sergeant Morgan Hayes, combat medic, 3 tours, 2 silver stars. 1 dishonorable discharge that wasn't dishonorable at all, just classified enough that the truth got buried under paperwork and plausible deniability. She'd saved 43 soldiers in the field, lost count of the civilians, operated in conditions that would make most surgeons quit medicine entirely. And when she'd seen something she wasn't supposed to see, when she'd reported officers selling medical supplies to insurgents, they'd thanked her for her service and made her disappear. New name, new city, new life so quiet it hurt. But quiet was safe. Quiet meant nobody looked too close. Sarah took a breath, then another. The shaking stopped. She checked her watch, 1:47 a.m. 3 hours left in her shift. The ER was unusually calm. 2 patients in observation, 1 waiting for X-ray results. Sarah updated charts, restocked supplies, tried not to think about what came next. Unemployment, maybe a move. Start over somewhere else. Again. The rain picked up outside, hammering against the windows, storm coming in from the coast. At 2:23 a.m., the radio crackled. Mercy Ridge, this is Unit 79er. We've got a mass casualty event. Multi-vehicle collision on Highway 101. At least 8 injured, possibly more. ET, 12 minutes. The overnight attending, Dr. Rashid, swore under his breath. Wake everyone now! The hospital exploded into motion. Lights blazed. Staff stumbled out of break rooms. Trauma bays prepped. Sarah moved on autopilot. Her hands steady now, her mind sharp. This part she knew. This part was real. Dr. Brennan appeared, looking annoyed at being woken. How many? 8 confirmed, Dr. Rashid said. Could be more. Christ, on a Tuesday. Brennan rubbed his face. Triage protocol. Nothing fancy. Stabilize and transfer the serious cases to county. The ambulances started arriving at 2:35 a.m. The first wave was bad. Broken bones, lacerations. 1 woman with a steering wheel imprint across her chest, breathing shallow, probably internal bleeding. Sarah moved between patients, doing what she was told, staying out of the way. The second wave was worse. A truck driver with a crushed pelvis screaming. A teenager who kept asking for her mom, not realizing her mom was 3 beds over, not breathing. Sarah helped hold the girl back while Dr. Rashid tried to save the mother. Tried and failed. The sound the girl made would haunt Sarah for weeks. By 3:15 a.m., they'd processed 7 patients, 1 DOA. 2 critical but stable enough to transfer. 4 would make it. Last ambulance incoming, someone called. Single patient, John Doe. Sarah was restocking gauze when they wheeled him in. Male, late 30s, maybe 40, athletic build, unconscious. Trauma to the head and chest, but something about him seemed wrong. Off. Dr. Brennan barely glanced at him. Vitals? BP's dropping. Pulse erratic, pupils non-responsive. Probable brain bleed, stabilize and ship to county. Brennan turned away. Sarah approached the gurney, intending to help transfer him, but stopped. The smell hit her first. Sharp. Chemical. Not blood, not alcohol. Something else. Her eyes went to his skin. Pale, yes, but with a faint blue tint around the lips that didn't match head trauma. His muscles twitched irregularly. Not seizure. Not shock. She knew this. Her pulse kicked up, old instincts screaming. Doctor, Sarah said quietly. Brennan ignored her. Dr. Brennan. Louder now. He spun, irritated. What? Something's wrong with this patient. Yeah, he was in a car accident, thanks for the diagnosis. No, I mean, look at his skin. The discoloration, the muscle spasms, and the smell. The smell? Brennan laughed. You're diagnosing by smell now? The other nurses exchanged glances. Here we go again. But Sarah couldn't stop. Every fiber of her being was screaming danger. We need to isolate him. Full hazmat protocol. Nobody touches him without... Enough! Brennan stepped close, voice low and venomous. I don't know what you think you're doing, but you're done. Get out of my ER. Please, just listen. Security! Sarah's hands went up, placating. Wrong move, made her look weak. But the alternative was worse. 2 security guards appeared, big guys, bored expressions. Escort Nurse Carter out of the building. She's terminated. Effective immediately. Wait, Sarah tried once more. That patient needs now. The guards each took an arm. Not rough, but firm. Sarah didn't resist. Couldn't. Not without revealing things that needed to stay hidden. They walked her through the ER, past staring staff, past patients who didn't understand what was happening, past the John Doe still lying on the gurney, muscles twitching, skin turning bluer. She tried to memorize his face, his symptoms, anything that might help her figure out. The doors closed behind her. Rain soaked through her scrubs in seconds. The guards handed her a plastic bag with her personal items from her locker. Phone, keys, and a photo of a family that wasn't hers anymore. Sorry, one guard said. He sounded like he meant it. Then they went back inside and Sarah was alone. She stood in the parking lot, rain streaming down her face, and for the first time in 8 months, she let herself feel it. All of it. The rage, the injustice, the bone-deep exhaustion of pretending to be harmless. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Static, then, Morgan? Sarah's blood turned to ice. Nobody called her that. Nobody knew that name. Who is this? It's Alex Reeves. We served together in us. I know where we served. Sarah's voice dropped. How did you get this number? Listen, I don't have time. I need you to... The line crackled. Patient at your hospital. Male. Brought in from... More static. Nerve agent. Military grade. If they treat him for trauma, he'll... The call cut out. Sarah stared at her phone. Nerve agent, military grade, the John Doe. She spun toward the hospital entrance. The guards were inside, backs turned. She could see through the windows into the ER. Dr. Brennan was leaning over the John Doe's gurney. A nurse was preparing an IV, standard trauma protocol, which would kill him in under 90 seconds if Sarah was right. She ran. The doors were locked. Sarah pounded on the glass. Stop! Don't give him that! Nobody heard, or they ignored her. Brennan inserted the IV. Sarah watched the fluid start to flow. 60 seconds. She tried her badge. Deactivated. 45 seconds. The side entrance. She sprinted around the building, feet splashing through puddles. The staff entrance was locked too, but the card reader was old. Sarah knew its flaws. Knew that if you swiped twice, fast, then pulled the door while hitting the reader a third time, the lock clicked. She was in. The hallway, left, right, through the supply corridor. She could hear alarms blaring in the ER. 30 seconds. Sarah burst through the trauma bay doors. The John Doe was convulsing. Brennan was shouting orders. Nurses scrambled. Get back! Sarah shoved past them. What the hell? Security! But Sarah was already moving. She grabbed the IV line and ripped it out. Grabbed the crash cart and shoved it aside. Scanned the patient's body with the precision of someone who'd done this 1,000 times in worse conditions. There. A small bulge under his left armpit. Not natural. Sewn in. She grabbed a scalpel from the tray. Stop her! Hands grabbed at her, but Sarah was faster. She made a single clean incision. Blood welled. Her fingers found the object. A small cylindrical case. Waterproof. Military issue. Inside, a single auto-injector. Atropine. High dose. Sarah didn't hesitate. She jammed it into the patient's thigh and pressed the release. The effect was almost immediate. The convulsions slowed. The blue tint faded. Heart rate stabilized. The monitor stopped screaming. Silence crashed over the room. Sarah dropped the injector, breathing hard. Her hands were covered in blood. The patient's chest rose and fell. Steady. Alive. Dr. Brennan stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You just... He couldn't form words. Then his face twisted with rage. You assaulted a patient. You broke into a sterile environment. The ER doors slammed open. 6 men in tactical gear poured in, weapons raised, eyes scanning. Military, not local police, not hospital security. Military. The lead operator's gaze swept the room and locked onto Sarah. "Ma'am, step away from the patient." Sarah raised her bloody hands and stepped back. 2 medics rushed forward with equipment Sarah recognized. Portable decontamination unit, specialized monitors. They worked with the efficiency of people who'd trained for exactly this scenario. A woman in uniform approached Dr. Brennan. "Who's in charge here?" Brennan straightened, trying to recover his authority. "I am Dr. Marcus Brennan, chief resident, and I want that woman arrested for saving Major Garrett's life." The woman's tone could freeze nitrogen. "That woman just identified and treated exposure to VX nerve agent, something your entire staff missed." Brennan's face went white. The woman turned to Sarah. "You made the diagnosis?" Sarah nodded. "What gave it away?" "Garlic smell, meiosis, fasciculations inconsistent with head trauma, blue skin discoloration, classic VX presentation." Sarah's voice was calm now, professional. The auto-injector was standard issue, special operations. He'd been carrying it in case of exposure. The woman studied Sarah for a long moment. "And you know this how?" Sarah said nothing. The woman's eyes narrowed. Then understanding dawned. "I see." She pulled out her phone and made a call, turned away, spoke in low, urgent tones. Sarah stood there, dripping blood and rain, surrounded by soldiers and gaping hospital staff, and waited. This was it. The moment everything fell apart, the moment her carefully constructed quiet life shattered. The woman ended her call and turned back. "Ma'am, I need you to come with us." "Am I under arrest?" "No, you're being debriefed." She paused. "General's orders." Sarah's stomach dropped. "Which general?" The woman smiled thinly. "He said you'd ask that. He said to tell you—" She checked her phone. "He still calls you Ghost." The world tilted. Ghost. Her call sign. From before. From when she was someone else. Only one person would remember that. Would use it now. General James Kellerman. Her CO from the 3rd tour. The man who'd tried to stop her discharge. Who'd told her if she ever needed anything. Anything at all. "We need to move," the woman said. "Major Garrett's exposure wasn't accidental, and the people who did this know he's here." As if on cue, the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red. Somewhere in the hospital, glass shattered. Then gunfire. The gunfire came from the north wing, 3 sharp cracks that echoed through the corridors like a countdown. Sarah's body moved before her brain caught up, old muscle memory overriding 8 months of forced docility. She dropped low, assessing angles, calculating distance to cover. The tactical team moved as one unit, weapons up, forming a protective circle around Major Garrett's gurney. The woman in uniform, captain's bars on her collar, grabbed Sarah's arm. "Stay close to me. I need a weapon." The captain's eyes flickered with something like respect. "Not happening, civilian." More gunfire. Closer now. The ER staff scattered like startled birds, some diving under desks, others freezing in place. Dr. Brennan stood in the middle of the chaos, mouth open, useless. "Lockdown protocol!" Dr. Rashid shouted, finally taking charge. "Secure all exits!" Too late for that. The double doors to the waiting room exploded inward. Not from gunfire, from a breaching charge. Smoke poured through, acrid and choking. Sarah's eyes watered, but she kept them open, scanning through the haze. 4 figures emerged. Black tactical gear, professional movements, not hospital security, not local cops. Mercenaries. The lead operator from the military team didn't hesitate. "Contact front, evacuate the package." Bullets tore through the air. The tactical team returned fire, controlled bursts, covering each other as they wheeled Major Garrett toward the south exit. The captain yanked Sarah along, moving fast. "Wait." Sarah twisted back. "The patients? Not your problem." But it was. The teenager who'd lost her mother was still in observation, sedated. Mr. Alvarez in 304 couldn't walk on his own. Mrs. Delgado with the crushed pelvis. A nurse screamed. Sarah saw her go down, hit in the shoulder. Not fatal, but bleeding bad. The captain's grip was iron. "We need to move now." Sarah made her choice. She drove her elbow into the captain's solar plexus, not hard enough to cause real damage, just enough to break the grip. Then she was running, low and fast, toward the fallen nurse. "Carter, get back here." Sarah slid the last few feet, grabbed the nurse, Vanessa, young, terrified, and dragged her behind the intake desk. Blood soaked through Vanessa's scrubs. Through and through, clean entry and exit. Lucky. "Stay down," Sarah commanded. "Pressure on the wound. You're going to be fine." Vanessa nodded, teeth chattering. Sarah peered over the desk. The mercenaries were advancing, using the smoke as cover. They moved with precision, clearing corners, communicating with hand signals. Former military, definitely. Well-funded. This wasn't some random hit. Someone wanted Major Garrett dead badly enough to assault a hospital. The tactical team had reached the south exit with the major, but two of them stayed behind, laying down suppressing fire. Outgunned, but holding position. Sarah assessed her options. No weapon, no backup, no plan. Standard Tuesday. The storage closet was 10 feet away. Inside, medical supplies, crash cart, and, if she remembered correctly, a fire extinguisher. Not much, but she'd worked with less. She waited for a lull in the gunfire, then sprinted. Made it. The closet was dark and cramped. She grabbed the extinguisher, tested the weight. 20 pounds, full canister. Good. Through the small window in the door, she watched the mercenaries spread out. They weren't interested in collateral damage, not actively shooting at staff, but they weren't being careful either. Their target was clear. Get to Major Garrett before he disappeared into federal protection. One mercenary moved past Sarah's position, weapons sweeping left and right. She counted to 3, threw open the door, and swung the extinguisher like a baseball bat. It connected with his helmet with a sound like a church bell. The mercenary dropped, not unconscious, but stunned. Sarah grabbed his sidearm, Glock 19, standard issue, and checked the magazine. 15 rounds. The mercenary groaned, reaching for his radio. Sarah kicked him in the head. He stopped moving. "Sorry," she muttered, then moved. The captain saw her emerge from the closet, armed, and her expression shifted from anger to something else. Recognition. Sarah wasn't the clumsy nurse anymore. She was something they'd stopped making. The mercenary leader spotted her, shouted something in Russian. Two of his team swung toward her position. Sarah dropped behind a gurney, felt bullets punch through the thin mattress inches from her face. She returned fire, 2 controlled shots. One missed. One caught a mercenary in the thigh, dropping him. 3 left. The tactical team used the distraction to gain ground, pushing the mercenaries back toward the waiting room. The leader barked orders, frustrated. This wasn't going according to plan. Hospital assaults only worked if you got in and out fast, before law enforcement mobilized. Sirens wailed in the distance. Cops, probably. Maybe FBI if they'd connected this to the major's exposure. The mercenaries heard it too. The leader made a decision. He pulled something from his vest, cylindrical, metallic, and tossed it into the middle of the ER. "Grenade!" someone screamed. Sarah's training kicked in. She had maybe 3 seconds to assess. The device wasn't standard military issue. Too small, wrong shape, not explosive. Gas. "Cover your faces," Sarah shouted. "It's VX, don't breathe." She grabbed a stack of surgical masks from a nearby cart, pressed one against her face. Not enough protection, not really, but better than nothing. The canister hissed, releasing colorless vapor into the air. Panic erupted. Staff ran in every direction. The tactical team had gas masks. They'd come prepared, but the hospital personnel had nothing. People started choking, collapsing. Sarah's eyes burned. Her throat closed up. She forced herself to stay calm, to breathe shallow through the mask, to move. She had maybe 60 seconds before the exposure killed her. The mercenaries retreated through the smoke and gas. Mission failed, but cutting their losses. The tactical team couldn't pursue, too busy dealing with the chemical attack. The captain appeared next to Sarah, thrust a proper gas mask into her hands. "Put it on." Sarah did, and the relief was immediate. Clean air flooded her lungs. Around them, people were dying. "The decon shower," Sarah gasped. "In the hazmat room. We need to get everyone there now." "There's no time. Make time." Sarah didn't wait for permission. She grabbed the nearest victim, a janitor, elderly, barely conscious, and started dragging him toward the hazmat room. It was designed for chemical spills, equipped with industrial showers and ventilation systems. The captain hesitated for half a second, then started barking orders. All personnel, emergency decontamination, south wing, hazmat room, move, move, move! The next 10 minutes were chaos. Sarah and the tactical team hauled victims into the showers, stripped off contaminated clothing, blasted them with water and decontamination solution. Some fought the process, too panicked to understand. Others had already stopped breathing. Sarah performed CPR on a security guard, compressions hard enough to crack ribs, breathing air into lungs that didn't want to work. Come on, come on! He gasped, coughed, vomited, alive. She moved to the next victim. Vanessa, the nurse she'd pulled behind the desk, was helping now despite her shoulder wound. Dr. Rashid coordinated triage, his hands steady even though his voice shook. Even Dr. Brennan stumbled in, pale and terrified, and started doing something useful for once in his life. By the time the fire department arrived with proper hazmat equipment, they'd saved 14 people, lost 3. Sarah stood in the decon shower, fully clothed, water streaming over her. Her hands were shaking again, not from fear, from adrenaline crash, from the weight of being someone she'd tried so hard not to be. The captain appeared in the doorway, gas mask off, face grim. Major Garrett's secure, medevac's taking him to a military hospital. She paused. We lost 2 operators. Good men. Sarah said nothing. The general wants to see you. I'm done. You don't get to be done. The captain's voice softened slightly. Those mercenaries came prepared. They knew about the VX exposure. They knew he'd be here. Someone fed them intel. Sarah turned off the water, faced her. What are you saying? I'm saying this hospital has a leak. Someone on staff is working with whoever tried to kill the major. The captain held up an evidence bag. Inside, a cell phone, cracked screen, recovered from one of the dead mercenaries. We pulled this from the bodies. Last outgoing call was to a local number, placed 20 minutes before the attack. Trace it. We did. The captain's eyes were hard. It pinged a cell tower 3 blocks from here. But the interesting part? The call duration was exactly 11 seconds, just long enough to confirm something. Confirm what? That Major Garrett was alive, that you'd stabilized him. The captain stepped closer. Whoever made that call was in this hospital, watching, waiting. Sarah's mind raced. The timeline fit. The mercenaries had hit the hospital right after she'd administered the atropine. Someone had been monitoring the situation, reporting back. But who? We're locking down the entire facility, the captain continued. Nobody leaves until we clear them. FBI's on the way. So is the general. She handed Sarah a towel. He asked me to tell you something. What? Semper Fi, ghost. Time to stop hiding. The words hit like a physical blow. Semper Fi, Marine Corps motto. But Sarah hadn't been a Marine. She'd been Army. Which meant the general wasn't Kellerman. It was someone else. Someone from even further back. Someone who knew her real name. Sarah dried her face slowly, buying time to think. Who am I meeting? You'll see. The captain almost smiled. Fair warning, he's pissed you stayed under this long without checking in. Great. They walked through the devastated ER. Bodies covered in sheets. Bloodstains everywhere. Shattered equipment. The air still smelled like chemicals and fear. Dr. Brennan stood near the intake desk talking to a police officer. When he saw Sarah, his expression cycled through confusion, anger, and something that might have been grudging respect. You, he said. Sarah stopped, waited. You saved... He struggled with the words. A lot of people should be dead right now, including me. Yeah, I was wrong about you. Sarah's laugh was bitter. You were wrong about a lot of things. She kept walking. Outside, the rain had stopped, but the sky was still dark, pre-dawn gray. Black SUVs ringed the building. Soldiers everywhere, securing the perimeter. News vans were starting to arrive, kept back by police barriers. A helicopter sat in the middle of the parking lot, rotors spinning down. The captain led Sarah toward it. As they got closer, a figure emerged from the aircraft. Tall, silver-haired, ramrod posture that screamed career military. Sarah's breath caught. Major General David Warren, Retired. The man who'd recruited her into the program 15 years ago, who'd turned a scared 20-year-old with good hands and better instincts into one of the most effective combat medics the military had ever produced, who'd held her while she cried after her first KIA, who'd pinned the silver star on her chest with hands that shook because he was so damn proud, who'd promised her she'd always have a place to come back to. Warren's face broke into a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Sergeant Hayes, been a while." "I don't go by that name anymore, sir." "I know. Sarah Carter, quiet nurse, invisible." He stepped closer, voice dropping. "How'd that work out for you?" Sarah met his gaze. "I was managing. Until tonight." Warren gestured at the hospital. "Chemical weapons attack on American soil. Federal asset targeted. 3 civilian casualties. And you, right in the middle of it all, playing hero." "I didn't have a choice." "There's always a choice." Warren's expression hardened. "You chose to disappear 3 years ago, chose to hide, chose to waste everything we built you into." The words stung because they were partially true. "I chose to survive," Sarah said quietly. Warren studied her for a long moment. Then he sighed, and suddenly he just looked old, tired. "Fair enough." He pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen. "But now we need you to choose something else. Come inside the tent. There's something you need to see." They walked to a mobile command center, basically a large tent with computers and communication equipment. Inside, analysts worked frantically, typing, talking into headsets, coordinating. Warren pulled up a video feed, security footage from inside the hospital, time-stamped from earlier that night. "Watch." The footage showed the ER, busy with the accident victims. Sarah saw herself moving between patients, saw Dr. Brennan dismissing her, saw the John Doe, Major Garrett, being wheeled in. Then Warren zoomed in on a figure in the background. Male, orderly's uniform, face partially obscured. "Notice anything?" Sarah leaned closer. The orderly was watching Major Garrett's gurney. Not helping, just watching. And his hand kept moving to his pocket. "He's texting," Sarah said. "Every 30 seconds. Updates on the Major's condition, your movements, staff positions." Warren switched camera angles. "He followed you to the trauma bay, watched you make the diagnosis. The second you pulled out that auto-injector, he left the room." The timestamp showed 2:41 a.m. Warren pulled up another screen. "Mercenary attack began at 2:53 a.m., 12-minute gap. Just enough time for a tactical team to mobilize if they were already in the area." "They were waiting," Sarah realized. "Nearby, ready to move." "Exactly." Warren froze the frame on the orderly's face. Even partially hidden, there was something familiar about him. Sharp features, cold eyes. Sarah's blood ran cold. "That's not an orderly." "No, he's former Spetsnaz, Russian Special Forces. Real name, Viktor Sokolov, wanted by 3 intelligence agencies." Warren pulled up a file. "He's been working at Mercy Ridge Hospital for 6 months. Perfect cover. Access to patient records, security protocols, shift schedules." 6 months. Same time Dr. Brennan transferred in. Sarah's mind made the connection. "Brennan, he's involved. We don't know that yet. Think about it. New chief resident shows up out of nowhere. Immediately starts targeting me, specifically, making my life hell. Creating an environment where I keep my head down, don't ask questions, don't make waves." Sarah's voice gained intensity. "He was neutralizing me, making sure I stayed quiet and compliant." Warren's expression said he'd already considered this. "It's a theory, but we need proof." "Where's Brennan now?" "Still inside, giving a statement." Warren paused. "The FBI wants to question you too, about your background, your service record, your discharge." Sarah's stomach dropped. "You told them?" "I didn't have to. The second you pulled out that auto-injector, you flagged every database in the federal system. Military-grade atropine administered correctly, identified VX exposure." Warren shook his head. "Civilian nurses don't have that training. Someone noticed." "So much for staying invisible. What happens now?" "Now we find out who ordered the hit on Major Garrett, and why." Warren pulled up another file. 3 weeks ago, the Major was part of a joint task force investigating illegal arms sales in Eastern Europe. They discovered a trafficking network moving Russian military hardware to non-state actors. Chemical weapons, specifically. VX. among other things. The Major's team was close to identifying the suppliers when they got hit. Ambushed crossing the border from Ukraine, 4 dead. The Major barely made it out. Warren's jaw tightened. Someone burned them, fed their location to the enemy. A mole. Has to be. High-level access. Someone who knew the operation details, the route, the timing. Warren looked at her. The Major's been in hiding since then, recovering, trying to piece together who sold them out. We moved him across 3 safe houses in 2 weeks. And someone still found him. Worse, someone tried to kill him before he could talk. The car accident wasn't an accident. Another vehicle forced him off the road, left him for dead. Warren pulled up crash scene photos. The VX exposure was deliberate, meant to look like trauma complications. If he died in a normal hospital, nobody would have looked closer. But he ended up at Mercy Ridge, where you happened to be working. Sarah saw where this was going. You think it's connected, my presence here and the Major being targeted. I don't believe in coincidences. Warren met her eyes. You disappeared 3 years ago after reporting corruption in the ranks. Officers selling medical supplies to insurgents. You had evidence, witnesses, documentation. Then suddenly you're under investigation, facing discharge, and your witnesses start dying in training accidents. Sarah's hands curled into fists. She remembered 3 good soldiers, dead because they'd trusted her. We buried the investigation, Warren continued, classified everything, changed your name, relocated you, made you disappear because it was the only way to keep you alive. And now? Now someone's targeting another whistleblower, using the same playbook. Discredit, isolate, eliminate. Warren's voice was steel. I think whoever came after you is the same network that's after Major Garrett, and I think they followed you here. The implications crashed over Sarah like a wave. They've been watching me all this time. Maybe. Or maybe when Garrett got assigned to that task force, he stumbled onto something that connected back to your case. Either way, the pieces are on the same board now. Sarah's mind raced, connecting dots. Brennan showing up 6 months ago. Viktor Sokolov getting hired as an orderly. The systematic campaign to break her down, keep her isolated. They were preparing, she said slowly. Getting assets in place. Building the infrastructure for a kill operation. They knew eventually something would force me to surface. And tonight you did. Warren nodded. Saving Major Garrett, exposing yourself, showing every agency with access to federal databases that Sarah Carter has training way above her pay grade. So I'm blown. Spectacularly. Sarah laughed, a short, bitter sound. 3 years of hiding, gone in one night. Was it worth it? She thought about Major Garrett, alive because she'd recognized what others missed. Thought about the 14 people in the decon showers, breathing because she'd moved fast. Thought about Vanessa, young and scared, but still helping despite her wound. Yeah, Sarah said, it was worth it. Warren smiled, genuine this time. Good, because I need you to finish what you started, which is, help me find the mole, find out who's running this network, and burn it to the ground. He pulled out a badge, federal credentials already made up with her photo. Welcome back, Sergeant Hayes, or should I say Special Agent Carter, FBI liaison, attached to my investigation. Sarah stared at the badge. You can't just deputize me. I can when the president signs off on it, which he did, about 20 minutes ago. Warren's grin was wolfish. Turns out saving a federal asset from nerve agent exposure while under fire looks really good on paper. You're officially a national security asset now. I don't want this. I know. Do it anyway. They locked eyes. Sarah saw the challenge there, the test. Warren had always pushed her, always demanded more than she thought she could give, and she'd always delivered. Old habits. Fine, she said, but I do this my way. Wouldn't have it any other. An explosion rocked the command tent. Sarah hit the ground on instinct, arms covering her head. The blast came from inside the hospital, 3rd floor, eastern wing. Flames erupted from shattered windows, glass raining down on the parking lot. Warren was already on his feet, barking orders. Get fire suppression, evacuate the building, find out what the hell just happened. Sarah ran toward the hospital. Soldiers tried to stop her, but she shoved past them. The badge Warren had given her was in her hand now, real and official. Inside was chaos. Again. Smoke filled the hallways, alarms screaming, staff herding patients toward exits. Sarah pushed against the flow, heading up. Third floor, eastern wing. That's where they kept the administrative offices. Dr. Brennan's office. Sarah took the stairs 3 at a time, lungs burning. She reached the 3rd floor and saw the damage. The explosion had blown out an entire office, flames licking the walls. Sprinklers activated, raining water that hissed against the fire. Through the smoke, she saw a body. Male, white coat, sprawled on the floor, half in the hallway, half in the burning room. Sarah got closer, already knowing what she'd find. Dr. Marcus Brennan, dead. Chest blown open by an explosion that had clearly originated from inside the office. Probably a device in his computer or desk drawer. Remote detonated. Someone had just eliminated a witness. Sarah searched the body quickly, professionally. Wallet, phone, cracked but intact. Keys. And in his inside coat pocket, a thumb drive. She pocketed it. "Carter!" The captain appeared, weapon drawn. "What are you doing here?" "Brennan's dead, bomb in his office." The captain swore. "Sokolov has to be. He's cleaning up loose ends." "Where's he now?" "We're searching the building, but—" The captain's radio crackled. A voice, urgent, reporting movement in the basement. Near the morgue. Sarah was already running. The basement was cold and quiet, the fluorescent lights flickering. Sarah moved carefully, Glock raised, clearing corners. The morgue was at the end of the hall, heavy doors closed. She pushed through. Inside, the temperature dropped 20 degrees. Steel tables, body drawers, the smell of disinfectant and death. And standing in the middle of the room, next to an open drawer, was Viktor Sokolov. Still in his orderly uniform, no longer pretending to be harmless. He had a gun in one hand, in the other a bag filled with hard drives and files. "Sergeant Hayes," he said, accent thick. "I wondered when we would meet properly." Sarah kept her weapon trained on his center mass. "Drop the gun." "I don't think so." He smiled. "You know, I watched you for months, studied you, broken little nurse hiding from her past. I almost felt sorry for you. You're stealing patient records, covering tracks. Everyone who might connect us to the Major's task force, already dead now." He gestured at the drawer he had opened. Inside, a body, male, 50s. Sarah didn't recognize him. "Who is that?" "Who is Dr. Richard Moss. Worked for CDC. Was consulting on biowarfare defense with Major Garrett's team." Sokolov shrugged. "Car accident last week. Very tragic." Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. "And Brennan?" "Useful idiot. Thought he was just reporting patient admissions for insurance fraud." Sokolov laughed. "Never knew he was feeding us intel on federal assets. Never knew we'd kill him the second he became a liability." "Who's we?" "You know who. Same people who came after you 3 years ago. Same people who will keep coming until you're in a drawer like Dr. Moss here." Sarah took a step closer. "I'm done running." "Good." Sokolov's gun came up fast. Sarah fired first. The shot caught him in the shoulder, spinning him back. But he didn't drop. Former Spetsnaz, tough as nails. He returned fire, bullets sparking off steel tables. Sarah dove behind a gurney, rolled, came up shooting. Another hit, this time center mass. Sokolov stumbled but stayed upright, body armor absorbing the impact. He charged. They collided hard, both weapons clattering away. Sokolov was bigger, stronger, trained in brutal close combat systems. His fist crashed into Sarah's jaw, snapping her head back. She tasted blood. But Sarah had been trained too, and she'd learned to fight in places where losing meant dying. She caught his next punch, twisted his arm at an unnatural angle. Bone cracked. Sokolov screamed but drove his forehead into her face. Sarah's vision exploded with stars. They separated, both bleeding, both breathing hard. "You can't win," Sokolov gasped. "Too many of us. Too deep inside your system." "Then I'll dig you all out." She lunged, driving her knee into his wounded shoulder. He howled, swung wild. Sarah caught his arm, used his momentum to throw him face first into a steel table. His head bounced off with a wet crack. He didn't get up. Sarah stood over him, chest heaving, blood dripping from her split lip. Footsteps thundered in the hallway. The captain burst in with a tactical team, weapons raised. "Secure him," Sarah ordered, voice rough. He's wanted for questioning. The captain stared at Sokolov's broken form. Is he alive? Sarah checked for a pulse. Weak, but there. Barely. They zip-tied him, called for a medical team. Sarah picked up the bag he'd been carrying, inside hard drives, patient files, and a laptop. Evidence. Finally. Warren appeared in the doorway, took in the scene. You okay? No. Sarah handed him the laptop. But I got his data. Everything he was trying to destroy. Warren opened it, scanned the files. His expression darkened. Jesus Christ. What? Patient records going back 2 years, cross-referenced with federal databases. They've been tracking witnesses, assets, anyone connected to anti-corruption investigations. Warren looked up. It's not just you and Major Garrett. There are dozens of names here. Judges, prosecutors, investigators. All targets? All dead or compromised. Warren kept scrolling. This is systematic, coordinated. Someone's been running a targeted elimination campaign against anyone who threatens their network. Sarah felt ice in her veins. How high does this go? High enough that they felt comfortable bombing a hospital in a major city. Warren's jaw set. We need to get this to secure location. Analyze it properly. Figure out who's giving orders. And if it's someone in your chain of command, then we bypass the chain. Warren met her eyes. I told you I needed someone I could trust. This is why. They moved back upstairs through the hospital that was slowly returning to controlled chaos. Fire suppressed. Casualties being treated. Evidence being collected. Sarah found Vanessa in one of the recovery rooms, her shoulder bandaged, talking to a federal agent. When she saw Sarah, her face lit up. You're okay. More or less. Sarah sat down, suddenly exhausted. How's the shoulder? Hurts like hell, but I'm alive because of you. Vanessa grabbed her hand. Thank you for coming back, for not leaving us. Sarah squeezed back. You did good tonight. Kept your head. Saved lives. I had a good example. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Vanessa asked, Who are you really? Sarah considered lying, considered deflecting, but Vanessa had earned the truth. Someone who tried to disappear. Didn't work out. I'm glad it didn't. Vanessa smiled weakly. The world needs more people who run toward danger, not away. Before Sarah could respond, her phone buzzed. The same unknown number from before. Alex Reeves. She answered. Yeah. You alive? Alex's voice was tight with tension. For now. You want to tell me how you knew about the major? Because I'm part of his team. Was supposed to meet him last night, but someone intercepted our communications. Static crackled. Is he safe? He's in federal custody, under guard. Sarah lowered her voice. Alex, there's a mole, high level. They're systematically eliminating anyone connected to anti-corruption investigations. I know, that's why I called. Alex paused. The major found something, right before the attack. Evidence linking the arms trafficking network to someone inside DOD. He was supposed to hand it over, but he never got the chance. Where's the evidence now? Hidden. He didn't tell me where, just said it was insurance, in case they came for him. Another pause. Sarah, if he dies before he can talk. He won't. I'll make sure of it. Sarah stood, wincing at the pain in her ribs. Where are you? Can't say over phone, but I'm coming to you. Should be there in 6 hours. Okay, be careful. You too, Ghost. The line went dead. Sarah pocketed the phone and found Warren coordinating with FBI agents near the command tent. When he saw her approach, he stepped aside. Major Garrett's conscious, he said, asking for you. For me? Says he needs to talk to the person who saved him. Won't speak to anyone else. Warren handed her a key card. Chopper's waiting. Military hospital, 30 minutes north. He's in secure ICU. Sarah took the card. What about Sokolov? In surgery, under armed guard. FBI will question him when he's stable. Warren's expression was grim. But I don't think he'll talk. People like him are trained to resist interrogation. Then we make him want to talk. How? Sarah thought about the thumb drive she'd taken from Brennan's body. Still in her pocket, unexamined. I might have leverage. Give me time to figure it out. Warren nodded. 6 hours. That's all I can buy you before this goes up the chain and out of our hands. I'll take it. Sarah headed for the helicopter, every muscle screaming, dried blood cracking on her face. The pilot didn't comment on her appearance, just fired up the rotors and lifted off. Below, Mercy Ridge Hospital looked like a war zone. Police lights, fire trucks, federal vehicles, news helicopters circling like vultures. Her quiet life was officially dead. But maybe that was okay. Maybe hiding had been the wrong choice all along. The flight took 27 minutes. They landed on a military base Sarah didn't recognize, escorted by armed Marines to a medical facility that looked more like a fortress. Major Garrett's room was at the end of a secured corridor. 2 guards outside, both eyeing Sarah with suspicion until she flashed her new credentials. Inside, the major was propped up in bed, monitors beeping steadily. He looked like hell, bruised, pale, IV lines everywhere. But his eyes were sharp when they focused on her. "You're the nurse," he said, voice rough but clear. "Was. You saved my life." "You're welcome." He studied her for a long moment. "Alex called. Said you're Ghost, the combat medic who disappeared. News travels fast. I read your file, or what's left of it after classification." Garrett shifted, winced. "You reported officers selling supplies to the enemy. They tried to destroy you for it." Sarah said nothing. "Same thing happened to my team. We found evidence of corruption, tried to report it through proper channels." His laugh was bitter. 3 days later, we're ambushed. 4 dead. Me poisoned with VX and left to die in a staged car accident. Who did it? That's the question, isn't it? Garrett reached under his pillow, pulled out a small object. A USB drive, different from the one Sarah had taken from Brennan. "I managed to hide this before they found me. Everything we discovered, names, transactions, communication records." He held it out. Sarah didn't take it. "Why give this to me?" "Because you're not part of the system anymore. You're outside it. That makes you the only person I can trust." Garrett's eyes were intense. "Everyone else has something to lose: career, reputation, pension. You already lost all that, which means you're free to do what needs to be done." Sarah took the drive. It felt heavy, dangerous. "There's a name on there," Garrett continued. "Someone very high up. Someone who's been running this network for years, selling weapons, eliminating threats, protecting their operation at any cost." "Who?" "Colonel Richard Vance, Deputy Director of Defense Intelligence. War hero. Medal of Honor recipient." Garrett's voice dropped. "And the man who personally authorized my deployment to the task force that got ambushed." Sarah's world tilted. Vance. She knew that name. He'd been involved in the investigation into her corruption case 3 years ago, had been one of the people pushing hardest for her discharge. "He sent you into a trap. Worse, he created the trap. Built the entire investigation as cover to identify which of us were getting too close to his operation." Garrett coughed, pain crossing his face. "The others on my team are dead. Alex is in hiding, and I'm only alive because you happen to be working at that hospital." "Not happened. They brought you there specifically. Sokolov was embedded at Mercy Ridge. Brennan was compromised. They wanted you dead where it could be controlled. And you ruined their plan." Garrett smiled weakly. "Thank you for that." Sarah pocketed the drive next to Brennan's. 2 pieces of evidence, 2 different sources, both pointing at a network of corruption that went straight to the top. "What do you want me to do with this?" "Expose it. All of it. Burn down everyone involved." Garrett's hand found hers, grip surprisingly strong. "I can't testify. They'll kill me before I reach a courtroom. But you're already dead, according to their files. That gives you an advantage." Being dead? Being underestimated. Sarah understood. The same way Dr. Brennan had underestimated her. The same way Sokolov had watched her for months and still thought she was broken. "There's one problem," Sarah said. "If Vance is running this operation, he has access to federal databases. He knows I'm alive now, knows I'm involved." "Then you'd better move fast." Garrett released her hand. "Alex will help. So will General Warren, if you trust him." "I do." "Good. You're going to need allies." Garrett's eyes were closing, exhaustion winning. "One more thing. The evidence isn't complete. I only got part of the network before they burned us. There's more. Financial records, communication logs, but I didn't have time to grab it." Where is it? Wherever Vance is keeping it, probably his office, Pentagon. Impossible to access without authorization. Sarah smiled grimly. I've done impossible before. I believe it. Garrett's voice was fading. Stop him, Ghost. For my team, for yours, for everyone they've hurt. I will. She left him sleeping and walked back through the secured corridor. The guards watched her pass, seeing a battered woman in bloody scrubs, not seeing the soldier underneath, not seeing the weapon they'd just armed. Outside, dawn was breaking over the base, pink and gold light cutting through gray clouds. Sarah stood in the cold morning air and made her decision. She'd tried hiding, tried being invisible, tried letting the system handle its own corruption. That was done. Now she was going to war. Sarah pulled out her phone and dialed Warren. I'm in, she said when he answered. Whatever it takes. But we do this fast and we do it completely. No half measures. Agreed. What do you need? Access to Pentagon databases, surveillance on Colonel Vance, and a team I can trust. Done. How soon can you be ready? Sarah looked at the sunrise, thinking about 3 years of hiding, about soldiers who died because they trusted her, about a system so broken it tried to kill anyone who pointed out the cracks. I'm ready now. Warren's voice was steel. Then let's end this. Sarah hung up and started walking toward the helicopter. Behind her, the sun climbed higher, burning away the darkness. Ahead, Colonel Richard Vance was probably waking up, drinking his coffee, planning his day. Still thinking he was untouchable. Still thinking the people he'd silenced would stay silent. He was wrong. The quiet nurse he'd tried to eliminate wasn't quiet anymore, and she was coming for him with everything she had left to lose, which was absolutely nothing. The war room Warren had commandeered was in a facility that didn't officially exist, buried 3 levels beneath a National Guard armory in Virginia. Sarah arrived 12 hours after leaving Major Garrett, running on coffee and adrenaline, every muscle in her body screaming. The guards at the entrance checked her credentials 3 times before letting her through. Inside, the space looked like something out of a spy thriller. Wall-mounted screens displaying satellite feeds, encrypted communication terminals, analysts working in tight clusters. Warren stood at the center, orchestrating everything with the precision of a conductor. He saw Sarah and waved her over to a secure conference room. Inside waited 3 people she didn't recognize. Sergeant Hayes, meet your team, Warren said. Captain Lisa Martinez, Cyber Intelligence. She'll handle digital forensics and network penetration. Martinez was compact, sharp-eyed, late 20s. She nodded at Sarah without smiling. Lieutenant James Park, Tactical Operations. Former Delta, now works black bag operations for DIA. Park was Korean-American, built like a brick wall, face expressionless. He gave Sarah a once-over that felt like an X-ray. And Dr. Rachel Voss, Forensic Accounting. She follows money trails that people think they've erased. Voss was older, 50s, gray-haired and grandmotherly, until you looked at her eyes. Those were predator eyes. They're clean, Warren continued. I vetted them personally. No connections to Vance or his network. They know what's at stake. Sarah set both USB drives on the table. Then let's get started. Martinez plugged them into an isolated system, air-gapped from any network. The data populated across multiple screens, files, emails, transaction records, communication logs spanning 3 years. Jesus, Martinez breathed. This is comprehensive. Split it up, Sarah said. Financial transactions to Voss. Communications and network analysis to Martinez. I need tactical assessments from Park on any operational details. Warren, you coordinate. They worked for 6 straight hours, breaking only for bathroom runs and more coffee. Sarah paced while they analyzed, her mind constructing the network like a 3-dimensional puzzle. Names connected to accounts, connected to operations, connected to bodies. Dr. Voss spoke first. The money's flowing through shell corporations in the Caymans, Cyprus, and Delaware, but it all traces back to defense contracts. Legitimate purchases on paper, but the hardware never reaches its intended destination. Where does it go? Warren asked. Black markets in Eastern Europe, Middle East, Africa, sold to whoever pays, no questions asked. Voss pulled up a spreadsheet. We're talking hundreds of millions over 3 years, weapons, ammunition, medical supplies, even vehicles. Sarah's jaw clenched. Medical supplies, the same thing she'd reported 3 years ago. Martinez jumped in. The communications show a command structure. Vance is at the top, but he's got people embedded everywhere. DOD, FBI, even local law enforcement. They use encrypted channels, rotating protocols, dead drops for physical intel. How many people are we talking about? Sarah asked. Active participants? Maybe 20, but there are dozens more who are compromised or complicit without knowing the full scope. Martinez highlighted names on screen. Judges who dismiss cases, prosecutors who lose evidence, investigators who close files prematurely. A machine, Warren said quietly, self-protecting, self-perpetuating. Park had been silent, studying tactical reports. Now he looked up. The hits are professional, military precision. They use contractors mostly, former Spetsnaz, ex-SAS, mercenaries who work for the highest bidder. Sokolov wasn't an anomaly. He was part of a roster. How many contractors? Active, maybe 15 on call. Could be 50 or more worldwide. Park pulled up photos. These are the ones we've identified from Major Garrett's files. Most wanted by international agencies. All ghost protocols, meaning they're protected by someone with serious reach. Sarah studied the faces. Killers. Every one of them. And Vance commanded them like pieces on a chessboard. What about evidence we can use in court? Sarah asked. Silence. Then Voss shook her head. Most of this is inadmissible. Obtained without warrants. Chain of custody is broken. Defense attorneys would shred it. We're not going to court, Sarah said flatly. Warren raised an eyebrow. Then what are we doing? Exposing him, completely, publicly, making it impossible for him to hide or run. Sarah pointed at the screens. We leak this to every media outlet, every watchdog group, every congressional committee that'll listen. Flood the zone. Make him radioactive. That's a declaration of war, Martinez said. The second this goes public, Vance will know we're coming. He'll activate every asset he has. Good. Let him. Sarah's voice was ice. Scattered targets are harder to hit than concentrated ones. Right now we're a small team. We go public. Suddenly there are 1,000 people looking at this data, asking questions, demanding answers. He can't kill everyone. Park's expression shifted, something like respect crossing his face. You want to turn his own strategy against him, overwhelm his ability to control the narrative. Exactly. Warren considered this. It's risky, could backfire, could get innocent people hurt. People are already getting hurt, have been for years. Sarah met his eyes. We can play it safe and hope the system fixes itself, or we can burn the whole thing down and build something better from the ashes. You sound like a revolutionary. I sound like someone who's tired of watching good people die while bad people get promoted. Warren held her gaze for a long moment, then nodded. Do it, but we need to move fast. The second Sokolov wakes up and lawyers up, Vance will know we have evidence. How long do we have? Sokolov's in surgery for another 2 hours, then recovery. Best case, we've got maybe 8 hours before he's coherent enough to talk. Sarah checked her watch. Then we work faster. They divided tasks. Martinez would prepare the data for release, scrubbing anything that could compromise national security while keeping the damning evidence intact. Voss would create a summary document, translating complex financial crimes into language journalists could understand. Park would identify Vance's likely safe houses and escape routes. Sarah would coordinate with Alex Reeves and prepare for the aftermath. She stepped out of the conference room to make the call. Alex answered on the first ring. Tell me you have good news. Depends on your definition, Sarah said. We're going public with everything. Major Garrett's evidence, Sokolov's records, all of it. Should hit the news cycle in about 6 hours. Alex was quiet for a beat. That's going to cause an earthquake. That's the idea. Vance won't just run. He'll retaliate. Hard. Alex's voice dropped. Sarah, he's got resources we probably don't even know about. Safe houses, backup identities, offshore accounts, and people willing to kill for him. I'm counting on it. The more desperate he gets, the more mistakes he'll make. Or the more bodies he'll stack up. Sarah leaned against the wall, suddenly exhausted. You have a better plan? No, I just want you to understand what you're starting. Alex paused. This doesn't end with Vance in handcuffs. This ends with blood. It started with blood. I'm just finishing what he began. They talked logistics for another 10 minutes. Alex was 2 hours out, driving through the night to reach them. Would bring additional evidence from Major Garrett's team, backup files they'd hidden before the ambush. When Sarah returned to the war room, Martinez had made progress. The data was organized, annotated, ready for distribution. She'd even created a simple web page that would go live simultaneously across multiple servers worldwide. Impossible to take down, Martinez explained. Mirror sites in 12 countries. Even if they kill the primary domains, the backups will propagate. Information wants to be free. Poetic, Voss said dryly. Also effective. Park had mapped Vance's properties. 3 homes, all registered under different LLCs, a cabin in Montana, a condo in D.C., a beach house in North Carolina, plus suspected safe houses in Mexico and the Caymans. He's probably already moving, Park said. The smart play would be to disappear before we make our move. Unless he doesn't know we're coming, Sarah said. He knows something's wrong. Sokolov's captured. Brennan's dead. The major's alive and talking. Even if he doesn't have specifics, he knows the operation's compromised. Sarah studied the map. Then we force his hand. Make him choose between running and protecting his network. How? We hit one of his people first. Someone close enough to panic him, but not important enough to be heavily guarded. Sarah scanned the list of names from the files. Stopped on one. Here. David Moss. Works in DoD procurement. Routes the fraudulent contracts through legitimate channels. He's just a functionary, Warren said. Exactly. Low-value target. Vance won't expect us to prioritize him. Sarah pointed at his address. He lives in Arlington, commutes to the Pentagon, probably has minimal security because he thinks he's invisible. Park caught on. We grab him, make it public. Perp walk him in front of cameras. Suddenly Vance's whole network sees that we're not playing by the usual rules. And Vance has to decide, Sarah finished. Does he cut Moss loose and lose credibility with his other people? Or does he try to extract him and expose himself? Martinez was already typing. I can get Moss's schedule. Daily routine. Security protocols. Do it, Warren said. But we need legal cover. Can't just kidnap a federal employee. Leave that to me, Voss said. Give me 20 minutes and I'll have enough evidence of financial crimes to justify an arrest warrant. She delivered in 15. A federal judge, one Warren trusted, signed the warrant based on the financial records from the USB drives. Not enough to convict, but enough to detain and question. By the time Alex arrived, hauling a duffel bag full of additional evidence, they had a plan. Moss would be arrested during his morning commute, brought in for questioning. The media would be tipped anonymously, and while the news cycle erupted with the first domino falling, they'd release the full data dump. One problem, Alex said, spreading papers across the table. I've been going through the financial records. There's a gap. What kind of gap? Major Garrett's team identified over $300 million in fraudulent contracts, but I can only account for $200 million in the transaction records. Alex pulled up a spreadsheet. Someone's moving money we can't trace, either through channels we haven't found or it's being held somewhere, Voss finished. Hidden, waiting for an emergency. How much are we talking? Warren asked. Conservatively, $100 million, maybe more. Sarah's mind raced. That much money was power. Escape velocity, the ability to disappear completely, set up a new life, maybe even a new operation. Vance has an escape fund, she said. Insurance in case everything falls apart. Which means he's not as trapped as we thought, Park said grimly. Then we find it, Sarah said. Freeze the accounts. Cut off his lifeline. Voss shook her head. That kind of money doesn't sit in a normal bank account. It's in hard assets. Gold, art, bearer bonds, property, things that can be liquidated fast but don't show up in financial databases. So it's physical, hidden somewhere. Sarah looked at the map of Vance's properties. One of these locations, or none of them, Alex said. Could be a storage unit, safe deposit box, offshore vault. They were running out of time. The news dump was scheduled to go live in 4 hours. Moss's arrest in 6. Every minute they delayed gave Vance more opportunity to maneuver. Sarah made a decision. We split up. Martinez and Voss stay here, finalize the data release. Park and Alex, you handle Moss's arrest. Warren and I will go after Vance directly. That's suicide, Park said. Vance is at the Pentagon, one of the most secure facilities in the world. You can't just walk in and arrest a deputy director. I'm not going to arrest him. I'm going to talk to him. Sarah's smile was cold. Give him a chance to surrender before the world finds out what he's done. He'll never surrender. I know, but I want to see his face when he realizes it's over. Warren studied her. You're using yourself as bait. Vance thinks I'm dead or broken, seeing me alive, armed with his secrets, carrying evidence he thought he'd destroyed. Sarah shrugged. That's when people make mistakes. Or when they get violent. Then I'll be ready. They geared up. Sarah traded her bloody scrubs for tactical clothing, dark pants, fitted jacket, boots designed for running or fighting. Park handed her a better weapon than the Glock she'd taken from Sokolov, a Sig Sauer P226, military issue, plus 2 spare magazines. Try not to start a firefight in the Pentagon, Park said. No promises. Alex pulled her aside before they left. You know this could go sideways fast, right? Vance isn't some petty criminal. He's a decorated officer with decades of experience and connections everywhere. So was I once. Sarah, I need to do this, not for revenge, for everyone he's hurt, everyone who can't fight back anymore. Sarah's voice was quiet but firm. Someone has to stand up and say enough. Alex nodded slowly. Then make it count. They left in separate vehicles. Park and Alex heading to Arlington to set up surveillance on Moss. Martinez staying at the facility to monitor communications. Warren and Sarah driving toward D.C., the Pentagon rising in the distance like a fortress. The plan was simple, which meant a dozen things could go wrong. Warren had arranged a meeting with Vance under the pretense of discussing security protocols for Major Garrett's protection. Vance had accepted, probably curious about what the military knew. He was about to find out. They cleared Pentagon security using Warren's credentials. The building was massive, labyrinthine, 17 miles of corridors connecting 5 concentric rings. Sarah had been here once before, years ago, receiving a commendation she'd later had to pretend never happened. Vance's office was on the 3rd floor, E-ring, prime real estate for senior officials. They took the elevator up, Sarah's hand resting near her weapon, but not touching it. Cameras everywhere, armed security on every corner. Remember, Warren said quietly, we're here to gather intel, not start a war. I'll try to be diplomatic. That's what worries me. Vance's assistant was a middle-aged woman with a pleasant smile and the eyes of someone who'd seen everything. She checked their IDs, made a call, then gestured toward the office door. Colonel Vance will see you now. The office was exactly what Sarah expected. Mahogany furniture, military memorabilia on the walls, photos of Vance with presidents and generals, a man who'd built his reputation on service and honor while secretly betraying everything those words meant. Vance himself was 60, silver-haired, still fit despite his age. He stood when they entered, extending a hand to Warren. David, good to see you. It's been too long. Richard, Warren shook hands. Thanks for making time. Vance's eyes shifted to Sarah, and for just a moment, something flickered across his face. Recognition? Concern? Then it was gone, replaced by professional courtesy. And you are? Sarah Carter, she said, not offering her hand, though you probably knew me as Morgan Hayes. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Vance's smile didn't waver, but his eyes went flat. I'm sorry, that name doesn't ring a bell. Really? Because 3 years ago you signed off on my discharge, buried an investigation into corruption, made sure everyone who testified for me ended up dead or discredited. That's quite an accusation. It's about to become quite public. Sarah pulled out her phone, showed him a screenshot of the website Martinez had built. In 3 hours, every media outlet in the country will have access to financial records, communication logs, and operational details of an arms trafficking network run by a senior DoD official. Vance glanced at the screen, his expression carefully neutral. If you have evidence of wrongdoing, you should present it through proper channels. Like I did 3 years ago? Like Major Garrett's team did last month? Sarah's voice was ice. How'd that work out for us? I don't know what you think you know. I know you've been selling weapons to enemies of the United States. I know you've murdered federal agents, soldiers, and civilians to protect your operation. I know you tried to kill Major Garrett because he got too close. Sarah stepped forward. And I know that in 3 hours, the entire world is going to know it too. Vance looked at Warren. David, are you part of this ambush? I'm part of making sure justice gets served, Warren said quietly. One way or another. For a long moment, Vance just stood there, calculating. Then he moved to his desk, pressed a button. Margaret, hold my calls. The door locked with a soft click. You've made a terrible mistake, Vance said, and all pretense of civility evaporated. Do you have any idea how many people depend on the stability of defense operations? How many lives are protected by the work we do? The work you do, Sarah laughed bitterly. You're not protecting anyone. You're profiteering off death and calling it patriotism. You're naive. The world doesn't run on ideals. It runs on power and money. I've kept this country safe by making sure the right people have the right tools. By selling VX nerve agents to Russian mercenaries? By maintaining relationships that give us intelligence and access other countries can't match. Vance's voice hardened. You think you're exposing corruption? You're exposing national security operations decades in the making. Then I guess you should have been more careful about who you murdered. Vance's jaw tightened. Everything I've done has been for the greater good. Tell that to Major Garrett's team. Tell that to the soldiers who died because the supplies they needed were sold to insurgents. Tell that to my witnesses. Sarah's control was slipping, rage bleeding through. You don't get to hide behind patriotism while counting blood money, and you don't get to destroy years of strategic planning because you have a grudge. Vance pulled out his own phone. One call and this evidence disappears. Your witnesses disappear, you disappear. Try it, Warren said, hand moving to his sidearm. Let's see how that plays. Vance looked between them, reassessing. You're not wearing a wire. This conversation isn't being recorded. It's your word against mine. Actually, Sarah said, pulling her jacket aside to reveal the small camera clipped to her shirt, we're streaming live to a secure server. Say hello to federal prosecutors. Vance's composure cracked, just for a second, but Sarah saw it. The realization that he'd been outmaneuvered. You can't prove anything, he said, but his voice lacked conviction. We don't have to. The court of public opinion moves faster than any trial. Sarah checked her watch. 2 hours now. Every news organization is getting a courtesy heads up, giving them time to verify sources, prepare their coverage. By noon, you'll be the most wanted man in America. This is extortion. This is accountability. Vance's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Sarah saw his expression change. Whatever message he'd received, it wasn't good news. Excuse me, he said, stepping toward the window. Warren moved to block him. I don't think so. I'm making a phone call, not jumping. You're staying where we can see you. Vance's phone kept buzzing, text after text. His fingers moved across the screen, typing responses with increasing urgency. Sarah's own phone vibrated. Message from Martinez. Moss just ran, spotted our surveillance, and bolted. Park's in pursuit. So Vance was warning his network, activating whatever contingency plans he'd prepared for this scenario. It's over, Richard, Warren said. Even if you run, even if you hide, this is the end. Nothing ends, Vance said. Operations pause, recalibrate, resume under new management. He looked at Sarah with something like pity. You think you're the first person to try exposing this? Systems like these are bigger than individuals. Cut off one head, 2 more grow back. Then I'll keep cutting. You'll be dead before you get the chance. Vance set his phone down. I tried to be civilized about this. Gave you opportunities to walk away. But you just keep pushing. Sarah's hand moved to her weapon. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. Vance pressed another button on his desk, and Sarah heard locks engaging throughout the office. Emergency protocol. The room was sealed. Warren drew his sidearm. Richard, don't do this. I'm not doing anything. I'm simply securing a sensitive area during a security incident. Vance's smile was cold. Which is what this will be classified as. 2 unstable individuals attempting to assault a senior defense official. Tragic but necessary use of force. Sarah heard footsteps in the corridor outside. Heavy boots. Military precision. You called security, she said. I called my security. People who understand that sometimes difficult decisions need to be made for the greater good. The door handle turned. Locked. Then someone started working on the override. Warren positioned himself between Sarah and the door. We're federal agents conducting an authorized investigation. Stand down. You're trespassers making wild accusations, Vance countered. And when those doors open, my people will respond appropriately. Sarah's mind raced through options. They were 3 floors up, no windows that opened, one exit now blocked by hostile forces. The camera on her shirt was still streaming, which meant everything Vance said was being recorded, but that wouldn't matter if they didn't survive the next 5 minutes. The override mechanism clicked. 10 seconds. Maybe less. Sarah made a choice. She grabbed Warren's arm, pulled him toward Vance's desk. The heavy furniture would provide cover, at least temporarily. When they breach, we negotiate, Warren said. Pentagon security won't just execute people without... The door exploded inward. Not security. Mercenaries. The same tactical gear Sarah had seen at the hospital, same professional movements. 3 of them, weapons raised, scanning for targets. Warren fired first. His shot caught the lead mercenary in the chest. Body armor absorbed it, but the impact staggered him back. Sarah shot the second one in the thigh, dropping him. The third returned fire, bullets tearing through the desk, wood splintering. Vance had already moved, using the chaos to slip toward a side door Sarah hadn't noticed. Private exit, probably connected to the emergency stairwell. He's running! Sarah shouted. Warren was pinned down, trading shots with the mercenaries. Go! I've got this! Sarah vaulted over the destroyed desk and sprinted after Vance. The side door led to a narrow corridor, service passage connecting executive offices. She caught a glimpse of Vance turning left, moving fast for a man his age. She pursued, weapon up, trying to get a clear shot without risking civilians. The corridor opened into a stairwell, and Sarah heard Vance's footsteps echoing downward. She took the stairs 3 at a time, pushing her battered body past its limits. Her ribs screamed protest. Her vision blurred, but she kept moving. Vance emerged on the ground floor, bursting into a main corridor crowded with Pentagon staff. People scattered, confused, terrified. Someone screamed, "Gun!" Security alarms wailed. Lockdown protocols activated. Steel barriers started descending. Vance ducked under one, Sarah right behind him. They emerged into a parking structure, underground, poorly lit. Vance ran toward a black SUV, already pulling out keys. Sarah aimed. "Stop! It's over!" He didn't stop, got the door open, climbed in. She fired. The bullet took out his rear window, safety glass exploding. Vance ducked, threw the vehicle into reverse, tires squealing. Sarah dove aside as the SUV rocketed past, clipped a concrete pillar, corrected. Vance shifted into drive and accelerated toward the exit ramp. Sarah ran to her own vehicle, Warren's car, but the keys were upstairs with Warren. She swore, looked around frantically. A young corporal was climbing out of a sedan, staring in shock at the chaos. Sarah flashed her federal credentials. "I'm commandeering this vehicle. Keys, now!" The corporal handed them over without argument. Sarah jumped in, fired up the engine, and tore after Vance. The SUV was already on the exit ramp, heading toward street level. Sarah pushed the accelerator down, the sedan's engine protesting but responding. They hit street traffic at the same time, Vance swerving through lanes, Sarah right behind him. Horns blared. Drivers slammed brakes. A taxi clipped Vance's bumper, but he kept going, mounting a curb, cutting through a gas station parking lot. Sarah stayed on him, her training overriding the insanity of a high-speed chase through D.C. during rush hour. Vance knew these streets, took corners tight, ran red lights with the confidence of someone who believed rules didn't apply to him. They raced across the bridge over the Potomac, Vance's SUV pulling ahead on the straightaway. Sarah pushed the sedan harder, engine temperature climbing, warning lights flashing. Vance took an exit ramp too fast, fishtailed, recovered. Sarah followed, gaining ground. They were in Arlington now, residential streets, narrow roads never designed for this. Vance made a mistake, turned into a dead end, realized too late. He slammed the brakes, reversed hard, but Sarah had already blocked the exit. They sat there, engines idling, 30 feet apart. Vance climbed out, hands empty, visible. Sarah did the same, weapon trained on him. "You can't shoot me in broad daylight," Vance called out. "Too many witnesses." Sarah glanced around. He was right. Windows everywhere, people peering out, probably recording on phones. "Then I guess you're getting arrested instead." "On what charges? Conspiracy theories posted on the internet?" Vance laughed. "I'll be out in hours, and then you'll wish you'd pulled that trigger." "The evidence is real. The crimes are documented. You're finished." "Am I?" Vance pulled out his phone. "One message, one call. And people you care about start dying. General Warren, Captain Martinez, that nurse from the hospital, Vanessa, wasn't it?" Sarah's blood turned to ice. "You wanted war," Vance said. "Welcome to it." He pressed send. Somewhere in the distance, Sarah heard sirens. Real police this time, responding to reports of gunfire and a chase. Vance smiled. "Tick-tock, Sergeant Hayes. Your move." Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. One shot. End it here. But something held her back. Not mercy, but the certainty that Vance's network extended beyond him. Killing him wouldn't stop the machine, just change its face. Her phone rang. "Martinez." "Sarah, we've got a problem. The website's under massive DDoS attack. Someone's trying to take it down before the release. Can you stop it?" "I'm trying, but they're throwing serious resources at us. Military-grade cyber warfare. If they shut us down before the mirrors propagate." The call cut out. Sarah looked at Vance. "What did you do?" "Activated contingencies. You're not the only one who can plan ahead." His smile widened. "Even if you kill me right now, the evidence dies with me. Every server, every backup, every copy. Gone." He was bluffing. Had to be. But what if he wasn't? The sirens grew louder. Police cars appeared at both ends of the street, boxing them in. Officers emerging, weapons drawn, shouting commands Sarah couldn't process. Vance raised his hands, the picture of innocence. "Thank God you're here, officers. This woman's been chasing me, threatening me. I think she's having a mental breakdown." Sarah knew how this looked. Woman with a gun. Civilian reports of a chase and shots fired. Vance in his military uniform, decorated officer, pillar of the community. "Ma'am, put the weapon down." The closest officer's voice was tense. Sarah didn't move. "I'm a federal agent. This man is wanted for—" "Put the weapon down now!" Multiple guns trained on her. The math was simple. She could explain, argue, present her credentials, but that would take time. Time for Vance's people to complete their cyber attack, erase the evidence, activate whatever kill teams he'd put in motion, or she could end this now. Sarah's finger moved to the trigger. Vance saw it in her eyes. "Do it. Become what they always said you were. Unstable, violent, a killer who couldn't handle the pressure." The words hit home because part of her believed them. Part of her had always wondered if the army had been right to discharge her, if she was too damaged to trust. Then she remembered Major Garrett, dying from VX poisoning, remembered the nurses choking on nerve gas, remembered 3 soldiers who died because they believed in doing the right thing, remembered 8 months of eating abuse from Dr. Brennan, pretending to be weak, hiding who she really was. She was done hiding. Sarah lowered her weapon, raised her hands. "My name is Sarah Carter, badge number 7743. I'm conducting an investigation into Colonel Richard Vance for conspiracy, arms trafficking, and murder of federal agents." The police didn't lower their weapons. "On the ground, now!" Sarah complied, lying face down on the cold pavement. She felt hands grabbing her, cuffing her, patting her down. Her weapon removed, her phone taken. Vance walked over, looked down at her with something like satisfaction. "You should have stayed quiet, Morgan. Should have stayed invisible. Would have lived longer." He turned to the police. "Thank you, officers. I'll make sure commendations are filed for your quick response." They were helping him, treating him like the victim, because in their eyes, he was the respectable one, the hero. And Sarah was just another unstable woman with a gun and a story nobody would believe. She was hauled to her feet, stuffed into the back of a patrol car. Through the window, she watched Vance make a phone call, his expression relaxed now, confident. He'd won, or thought he had. Sarah's phone was in an evidence bag on the front seat. She could see the screen lighting up with incoming messages. Couldn't read them, but she could guess. Warren checking in. Martinez reporting status. Alex asking what the hell was happening. The patrol car pulled away, leaving Vance standing victorious in the middle of the street. But as they turned the corner, Sarah saw something that made her smile. A news van. Camera crew setting up. Reporter already talking into a microphone, gesturing at the scene. And on the side of the van, breaking news, Pentagon official under investigation. Martinez had done it. Despite the cyber attack, despite everything, the story was breaking. Sarah leaned back in the uncomfortable seat, cuffed hands behind her, and allowed herself one moment of satisfaction. Vance might have outmaneuvered her today, but the truth was out there now, and the truth was a weapon nobody could stop. The patrol car's radio crackled. "All units, be advised. Federal marshals are requesting immediate custody transfer of suspect Sarah Carter. Repeat, federal custody transfer authorized under national security protocols." The officer driving glanced at his partner. What the hell is going on? No idea. But if the feds want her, they can have her. They pulled into a police station, and before Sarah could be processed, a black SUV appeared. Federal marshals emerged, credentials out, moving with purpose. Within minutes, Sarah was transferred from local police custody to federal hands. The marshals uncuffed her, returned her weapon and phone. General Warren sends his regards, one of them said. He's waiting for you. Sarah checked her phone. 17 missed calls. 33 text messages. The most recent was from Warren. Vance's cyber attack failed. Stories live. Every network's running it. You did it. The next message was from an unknown number. This is Special Agent Thompson, FBI. We have a warrant for Colonel Richard Vance's arrest. Need your testimony. Where are you? And then, buried in the chaos, a message from Vance himself, sent just minutes ago. You win this round. But I'm not finished, and neither are the people I work for. Watch your back, Ghost. This is far from over. Sarah stared at the message, then looked up at the marshals. Where's Vance now? Unknown. He left the scene before we could apprehend him. Of course he did. Sarah's phone rang. Martinez. Tell me you have good news.
What?
Mixed. The stories everywhere. Major networks, social media, congressional offices are demanding investigations. But what? But while we were dealing with the cyber attack, someone hit our facility. Armed assault. We held them off, but they got into the evidence room. Sarah's stomach dropped. The USB drives? Destroyed, along with the backups we had on site. What about the cloud mirrors? Still online, still accessible, but anything physical, anything we could have used in a traditional prosecution? Gone. Sarah closed her eyes. Vance was covering his tracks. Even in defeat, he was eliminating evidence, making it harder to build a legal case. What about Sokolov? Martinez was quiet for a moment. He's dead. Died during surgery. Complications, they're saying. But the timing's suspicious. Another loose end eliminated, another witness silenced. We need to regroup, Sarah said. Where's Warren? On his way to you. ETA 10 minutes. Sarah ended the call and looked at the marshals. I need to make one more call. They nodded, stepped back to give her privacy. She dialed Alex Reeves. Straight to voicemail. Sarah's pulse kicked up. Alex, call me back. Now. She tried again. Same result. Third call. Finally, a pickup. But it wasn't Alex's voice. It was Vance. Looking for your friend? His voice was smooth, controlled. Don't worry, Alex is fine, for now. Sarah's world narrowed to a single point of rage. If you hurt, you'll what? Arrest me? Your evidence is circumstantial. Your witnesses are dead. And I'm currently being portrayed in the media as a victim of a smear campaign by disgruntled former employees. Vance's tone shifted, became almost conversational. But I'm not unreasonable. I'm willing to make a trade. What do you want? You. Turn yourself in. Confess that you fabricated the evidence as revenge for your discharge. Publicly recant everything. And if I don't? Then Alex Reeves becomes another tragic casualty. Car accident, probably, or maybe a suicide. Former soldier, PTSD, couldn't handle the pressure. You know how these stories go. Sarah's hands were shaking. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll never find me. Vance paused. You have 1 hour to decide. Make the right choice, Sergeant Hayes. Save your friend, or watch another good soldier die because of your pride. The line went dead. Sarah stood there, phone pressed to her ear, mind racing through impossible calculations. If she confessed, Vance walked free. The network survived. Everyone who died would have died for nothing. But if she didn't, Alex was dead. Another name added to the list of people she'd failed to protect. The marshals were watching her, concerned. Everything okay? No, nothing was okay. Nothing had been okay since the moment she'd tried to do the right thing 3 years ago. Sarah looked at her phone one more time, saw a new message pop up. From Vance, a photo attachment. She opened it. Alex Reeves bound to a chair, bloodied but conscious, eyes defiant even in captivity. And standing behind Alex, just out of frame but visible in shadow, was someone else. Someone Sarah recognized from the files. Colonel Marcus Trent, Vance's second in command. the enforcer who handled wet work when situations required permanent solutions. The message that followed made Sarah's blood run cold. 59 minutes. Choose wisely. Sarah stared at the photo until the screen went dark. Then she was moving. The marshals tried to follow, but she waved them off. I need a secure line. Now. They took her to a mobile command unit parked behind the station. Inside, Warren was already waiting, his face grim. He'd seen the news coverage, knew what was happening in real time. Vance has Alex, Sarah said before he could speak. Warren's expression didn't change. I know. We intercepted the transmission. FBI's working on tracing the location. How long? Could be minutes, could be hours. The signal's bouncing through multiple relays. Warren pulled up a screen showing digital maps, signal triangulation attempts. He's using military-grade encryption. Someone taught him well. Someone in his network. Sarah paced the cramped space, mind running scenarios. He wants me to confess. Publicly. Destroy my credibility so the evidence looks fabricated. And if you do, Alex lives? Maybe. If Vance keeps his word, which he won't. Warren sat back, studying her. So what's the play? Sarah stopped pacing. We make him think I'm going to do it. Buy time for the trace. Then we hit him before he realizes it's a trap. That's thin. A lot of ways it goes wrong. You have a better idea? Warren was quiet for a moment. Then he pulled out a tablet, started typing. We've got something you should see. Came through while you were being transferred. He turned the screen toward her. Security footage from the Pentagon, time-stamped from the shootout in Vance's office. The camera had captured everything. Vance's confession, his threats, his orders to the mercenaries. Clear, damning, undeniable. Your body camera streamed it to our servers, Warren explained. We've got audio and video of him admitting to arms trafficking, murder, conspiracy. It's already been submitted to the DOJ. Sarah felt something loosen in her chest. That's admissible? Recorded during an authorized federal investigation. Multiple witnesses, chain of custody documented. Warren's smile was sharp. He talked himself into a life sentence. Then why is he still making demands? He has to know we have this. Because he's desperate. Cornered animals are the most dangerous. Warren pulled up another screen, this one showing news coverage. Every major network running the story. Congressional leaders calling for immediate investigations. Pentagon in full crisis mode. The second this footage gets released publicly, Vance loses any leverage he thinks he has. His network will abandon him. His protection evaporates. So we're holding it back? For now, using it as a bargaining chip. Warren leaned forward. But Sarah, the moment we play that card, Vance becomes a dead man. Not metaphorically. His own people will kill him to protect themselves. He knows too much. Sarah understood. Vance's only value right now was the network's belief that he could still control the situation. The second that belief shattered, he was liability to be eliminated. Then we use that, Sarah said slowly. Make his own people turn on him. How? Sarah pulled out her phone, looked at Vance's message again. 59 minutes, now down to 43. We leak parts of the video, not everything, just enough to show his network that he's already compromised, that he gave up names, locations, operational details. He didn't, though. The video cuts off before... They don't know that. We edit it, make it look like he was singing like a canary to save himself. Sarah's mind was racing now, pieces falling into place. His people see that. They'll assume he's cutting deals. They'll start protecting themselves, destroying evidence, going to ground, and abandoning Vance in the process. Exactly. Suddenly he's alone, no backup, no extraction, just him and whoever he's got with him right now. Sarah checked the time. How fast can Martinez create an edited version? Warren was already on the radio. Captain Martinez, I need you to cut together a highlight reel from the Pentagon footage. Make it look like Vance is cooperating fully. Names, dates, everything. How long? Martinez's voice crackled back. 20 minutes? Maybe less? You've got 15. Sarah used the time to prepare. Changed into fresh tactical gear the marshals provided. Checked her weapon. Loaded fresh magazines. Ran through mental scenarios, calculating odds, accepting the likelihood that this ended badly. Her phone rang. Vance again. She answered. I need more time. You have 37 minutes, not a second more. I want proof Alex is alive. Video call. Now. Vance laughed. You're not in a position to make demands. Neither are you. The story's everywhere. Every intelligence agency in the world is looking for you. You think your network's going to protect someone this radioactive? Sarah kept her voice hard. Proof of life, or I go public with everything right now, including the Pentagon footage. Silence. Then, what footage? The recording from my body camera. You confessing, threatening federal agents, ordering mercenaries to kill us. Sarah smiled, though he couldn't see it. Surprised? You really thought we'd walk into your office without insurance? More silence. Sarah could almost hear him recalculating. 10 seconds, Vance said finally. Video call. The phone screen shifted. Alex appeared, face bruised, one eye swollen shut but conscious and alert. Behind him, the setting was nondescript. Concrete walls, industrial lighting, could be anywhere. Sarah! Alex's voice was hoarse. Don't do what he wants. Don't! Someone off camera hit him. Alex's head snapped to the side. Enough, Vance's voice. You've seen. Now decide. I need to know where... The call ended. Sarah forced herself to breathe. Alex was alive, hurt but functional. That was something. Martinez came through. Video's ready. Sending it to you now. Sarah's phone pinged. She opened the file. Martinez had done excellent work. The edited footage showed Vance appearing to cooperate, providing information, looking defeated. To anyone in his network watching, it would seem like complete betrayal. Release it, Sarah said, but not wide. Just to the encrypted channels his network uses. Make them think it's leaked, not official. On it. Warren pulled up a map of D.C. and surrounding areas, marking potential locations based on the brief glimpse of Alex's holding area. Industrial space. Could be warehouses near the port, or one of the abandoned military facilities in Virginia. How many possible sites? Dozens. We'd need days to search them all. Sarah's phone buzzed. Message from an unknown number. You lied about the time. Now your friend pays the price. Her stomach dropped. She tried calling back. No answer. Then another message. Another photo. Alex on the ground now, blood pooling from a fresh wound. Not fatal yet, but meant to send a message. Sarah's hands curled into fists. He's escalating. We're running out of time. The video's spreading, Martinez reported. Picked up traction in the dark web channels. People are talking. Let me guess. They think Vance flipped. Worse? They think he's already in federal custody, making deals to reduce his sentence. Martinez paused. I'm seeing chatter about bounties. His own people putting prices on his head. How much? 5 million? Dead or alive? Sarah felt a grim satisfaction. The network was eating itself, exactly as planned, but it also meant Vance was even more desperate now. Trapped between federal prosecution and his own people hunting him, desperate men made fatal mistakes. Her phone rang again. Vance, voice tight with barely controlled rage. What did you do? Gave your friends a preview of coming attractions. Sarah kept her tone casual. How does it feel, being the target for once? You just signed Alex Reeves's death warrant. You did that the moment you grabbed him. I'm just making sure you don't have anywhere to run when it's over. I still have options, resources you can't imagine. Had, past tense. Sarah glanced at Warren, who nodded. The trace was getting closer. Your network's abandoning you. Your safe houses are compromised, and every minute you spend on this call, we're narrowing down your location. She heard movement on Vance's end, shouting, someone arguing, then a gunshot. The line went dead. Sarah's heart hammered. What just happened? Warren was listening to radio chatter from the trace team. Signal went dark. Either he destroyed the phone or... He didn't finish. Or his own people just found him. They waited. 30 seconds. A minute. Sarah's phone stayed silent. Then it rang, but not Vance this time. Unknown number, different area code. Sarah answered warily. Hello? Sergeant Hayes. The voice was male, accented, Russian. My name is not important. What is important is that we have a mutual problem. Who is this? Someone who worked with Colonel Vance, past tense, as you said. A pause. He has become inconvenient, loud, careless, bad for business. Sarah's mind raced. Someone from the network, calling to negotiate. What do you want? Same thing you want. Vance removed from the equation, but quietly. without more publicity, without trials that expose operational details. You want me to kill him for you? I want to give you his location. What you do with that information is your choice. The man's tone was businesslike. But know this, if you arrest him, if he testifies, names will be named, including people who have nothing to do with his criminal enterprise, intelligence assets, deep cover operatives, people whose exposure would create international incidents. Sounds like a reason to let the justice system will get you headlines and book deals, but it will also get innocent people killed. The Russian's voice hardened. Vance has a dead man's switch, files set to auto-release if he's arrested or killed by anyone connected to his network. Names, locations, operational details going back 20 years. Sarah looked at Warren, who was already typing, trying to verify. Why tell me this? Because the switch doesn't activate if an outside party eliminates him. Someone with no connection to his operation. Someone like you. A pause. We researched you, Sergeant Hayes. You're not interested in political games. You want justice. We're offering you a clean shot. In exchange for what? Your silence about certain aspects of his network. The parts that don't involve corruption or murder. The parts that are, shall we say, officially sanctioned even if unofficially denied. Sarah felt sick. They were asking her to bury evidence of legitimate intelligence operations to get to Vance, to become complicit in the exact kind of moral compromise that had led to this mess. No deal, she said. Then Alex Reeves dies. Along with everyone else, Vance's dead man's switch exposes. Dozens of assets, hundreds of lives. The Russian sighed. I understand moral absolutism, Sergeant. I even admire it. But this is the real world. Sometimes the least bad option is the best we get. How do I know you're telling the truth about the dead man's switch? You don't. But ask yourself, would Vance go into this without insurance? Without a final card to play? Sarah wanted to argue, to find another way. But deep down, she knew the Russian was right. Vance absolutely would have contingencies. Where is he? First your word. You take Vance down, you bury the classified operations files. Sarah looked at Warren, who was listening on speaker. He gave a tiny shake of his head. Don't agree. But Sarah thought about Alex, bleeding in some warehouse. Thought about Major Garrett's team, already dead. Thought about all the people who'd died because she'd tried to fight corruption through proper channels. Sometimes the system was too broken to fix from inside. My word, she said. But I want proof about the dead man's switch. Check your email. Sending authentication codes now. Sarah's phone pinged. She opened the message. File directories. Server locations. Encrypted packages set to auto-deploy under specific conditions. It looked real, too detailed to be fabricated quickly. Warren was analyzing it, his expression growing darker. It's legitimate. Those are actual intelligence databases. If this gets released, where is he? Sarah repeated. Warehouse complex, Port of Baltimore, Pier 19, Building C. He's holed up with maybe 6 contractors. Well-armed but low on options. The Russian paused. One more thing. Colonel Trent is with him, the man in the photo. He'll die protecting Vance. No surrender. You understand? I understand. Then we have an arrangement. Good hunting, Sergeant Hayes. The line went dead. Sarah stood there, phone in hand, feeling the weight of the decision she'd just made. Warren was watching her carefully. We're not actually bearing evidence, he said. It wasn't a question. We're going to try very hard not to. Sarah met his eyes. But if it comes down to saving lives or exposing every classified operation in the federal government, I'm choosing lives. That's a slippery slope. I've been sliding down slopes my whole career. One more won't kill me. Sarah grabbed her gear. How far is Baltimore? 45 minutes. Maybe 30 if we fly. Then get me a helicopter. They assembled a team quickly. Park and 4 tactical operators, all vetted, all trusted. The flight took 27 minutes, the helicopter cutting through dark clouds. Rain starting to fall again. Sarah spent the time studying satellite imagery of the warehouse complex. Pier 19 was industrial, mostly abandoned, perfect for someone who needed privacy. Building C was 4 stories, concrete construction, multiple entry points. We go in quiet, Sarah said. Rescue Alex first. Contain Vance second. Minimize casualties. Park nodded. Rules of engagement. Vance and Trent are armed and dangerous. Defend yourselves. Everyone else gets a chance to surrender. Sarah checked her weapon. But if they're holding Alex in hostile conditions, if there's immediate threat to his life, we move fast and hard. They landed 2 blocks from the pier, using the rain as cover. The team moved in tactical formation, park on point, Sarah in the middle, 2 operators watching their backs. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark except for a few lit windows on the second floor. No obvious security, which meant either Vance was arrogant or he had defenses they couldn't see. Sarah's radio crackled. Martinez monitoring from the mobile command unit. Thermal imaging shows 6 heat signatures. Second floor, northeast corner. 1 appears prone, probably your hostage. Any patrols? Negative, they're holding position. Not good. Meant they were ready for an assault. Waiting. Sarah signaled the team to spread out, approach from multiple angles. Park took 3 operators around to the south entrance. Sarah and the remaining operator, a woman named Kowalski, headed for the north. The door was unlocked. Another bad sign. They entered carefully, weapons up, clearing corners. The ground floor was empty, just rusted equipment and puddles of standing water. Stairs at the far end led up. Sarah took them slowly, each step deliberate, listening for any sound above. At the second floor landing, she heard voices, arguing in Russian. She held up a fist. Stop. Listened closer. Told you. The Americans are coming. We need to move now. Vance says wait. He's negotiating. Negotiating? He's delusional. They'll kill us all. Then leave. More money for the rest of us. Footsteps. Someone walking away from the group. Sarah pressed herself against the wall, Kowalski doing the same. A man emerged from the corridor, one of the contractors. Young, nervous, carrying an AK-47, but holding it wrong. Amateur. Sarah stepped out, weapon aimed at his center mass. Drop it. He froze, eyes wide. For a second she thought he'd comply. Then he swung the rifle toward her. Kowalski fired first, double tap to the chest. The contractor went down hard, rifle clattering. The sound echoed through the building like thunder. Shouting erupted from the room ahead. Return fire punched through the walls, bullets whining past Sarah's head. She dove into a side room, Kowalski right behind her. Contact, Sarah radioed. Second floor, north corridor. Multiple hostiles. Park's voice came back. Copy. Moving to your position. More gunfire. Someone was laying down suppressing fire, keeping Sarah pinned. She risked a glance around the doorframe, saw muzzle flashes from the room where they were holding Alex, using him as a shield. Of course. Sarah's mind worked through options. Direct assault meant Alex caught in the crossfire. Waiting meant Vance could execute him out of spite. Negotiating meant giving Vance what he wanted. None of those worked. She needed a fourth option. Kowalski, you got any flashbangs? The operator pulled 2 from her vest. Last ones. That'll do. On my signal, toss them down the corridor. High arc, bounce them into that room. That's a tough throw. You're Delta trained. Make it happen. Kowalski positioned herself, calculated angles. Sarah provided covering fire, forcing the contractors to duck back. Now! Kowalski threw both flashbangs in quick succession. Perfect arcs, bouncing once, rolling into the room. 2 seconds of silence. Then the world went white and loud. Sarah was moving before the sound faded, sprinting down the corridor, weapon up. She hit the doorway and took in the scene in an instant. 5 contractors, all disoriented, hands over ears and eyes. Alex on the floor, bound but conscious. And standing in the back corner, somehow still upright and aiming a pistol, Colonel Marcus Trent. He fired. Sarah felt the bullet crease her shoulder, burning line of pain, but not deep. She returned fire, 3 rounds center mass. Trent had body armor, but the impact staggered him. The contractors were recovering, reaching for weapons. Sarah shot the closest one in the leg, dropped him. Kowalski took down 2 more with precision shots. The last contractor raised his hands. Don't shoot! I surrender! Park and his team burst through the south entrance, flooding the room. Within seconds, they had the surviving contractors secured. But Trent was gone. Sarah spotted blood trail leading to a back stairwell. She followed, ignoring the pain in her shoulder. The stairs led up, toward the roof. She emerged into rain and darkness. The roof was flat, covered in old ventilation units and debris. Thunder rolled overhead. Trent stood near the edge, one hand pressed to his side where blood seeped through his jacket. His pistol was aimed at Sarah. "That's far enough," he said. Sarah kept her weapon trained on him. "It's over. Vance's network is collapsing. You're wounded. Surrender." "I don't surrender." Trent's voice was calm despite his injury. "I'm a soldier. Same as you. I'm nothing like you." "No? You kill when ordered. Follow chains of command. Believe in the mission even when it's ugly." Trent smiled, blood on his teeth. "Only difference is who signs your checks. I never sold weapons to enemies of my country." "Your country sells weapons to enemies all the time. We just cut out the political middlemen." Trent shifted his stance, wincing. "You really think this changes anything? Vance goes down, someone else rises up. The machine keeps running. Then I'll break the machine." "You can't. It's bigger than you, older, built into the system itself." Trent's pistol wavered. He was losing blood fast. "But you know what? I respect the attempt. You're a true believer. Rare these days." "Where's Vance?" "Gone. Slipped out while you were busy playing hero." Trent laughed wetly, probably halfway to an extraction point by now. "New identity. New life. You'll never find him." Sarah's radio crackled. Martinez's voice, urgent. "Sarah, we've got movement. Vehicle leaving the warehouse complex, heading west on Harbor Road." "Vance." Sarah looked at Trent. "Last chance. Stand down." "Can't do that." His pistol came up, aimed at her head. Sarah fired first. Trent dropped, pistol falling from his hand. She approached carefully, kicked the weapon away, checked for pulse. Faint, but present. He'd live. Maybe. "Officer down," she radioed. "Need medical on the roof. Suspect wounded, but alive." Then she was running, back down the stairs, through the warehouse, out into the rain. Park and his team had secured Alex, were cutting his restraints. "I'm going after Vance," Sarah shouted. "Get Alex to a hospital." "Sarah, wait." Alex tried to stand, stumbled. "He's gotta—" But Sarah was already moving, sprinting toward where they'd parked the vehicles. She jumped into an SUV, fired up the engine, tore out of the parking lot. Her radio crackled. "Subject vehicle is a black Mercedes sedan. License plate Echo Tango 739, currently on I-95 northbound." Sarah punched the accelerator, weaving through sparse traffic. The rain was coming down harder now, visibility dropping. Her shoulder throbbed where the bullet had grazed her, but she ignored it. Up ahead, she spotted the Mercedes. Vance was driving fast, but not recklessly, still trying to blend in, avoid attention. Sarah closed the distance. Vance must have spotted her in his mirror because the Mercedes suddenly accelerated, cutting across two lanes. Sarah stayed on him, matching his moves. They raced north, the city falling away, suburbs thinning out. Vance took an exit ramp too fast, tires squealing. Sarah followed. They were on back roads now, heading toward rural Maryland. Where was he going? Her question was answered when she saw the small airfield ahead. Private planes. No commercial traffic. Perfect for someone running. The Mercedes screamed into the parking lot, Vance already jumping out, running toward a waiting helicopter. The rotors were spinning up, ready for immediate departure. Sarah slammed the brakes, jumped out, weapon drawn. "Vance, stop!" He didn't stop, kept running. Sarah fired a warning shot into the air. "Federal agent, stop or I shoot!" Vance reached the helicopter, grabbed the door handle. Sarah aimed lower, fired. The bullet took out the helicopter's tail rotor in a shower of sparks. The pilot killed the engine immediately, hands up. Smart man. Vance spun, and Sarah saw the pistol in his hand for the first time. They faced each other across 30 feet of rain-soaked tarmac. Two people who'd destroyed each other's lives. Two soldiers who'd chosen different sides of the same war. "It didn't have to be like this," Vance called out. "You could have stayed quiet, lived a peaceful life. Watching you profit off corruption and murder?" Sarah shook her head. "That's not peace, that's cowardice. It's survival. Something you clearly don't understand." Vance's pistol stayed level. "You're going to die here, Hayes, alone, and I'm going to disappear. Everything you've done, meaningless." "Except it's not." Sarah gestured with her free hand. "The evidence is out there, the recordings, the testimony. Your network's collapsing, you've already lost." "I still have the dead man's switch. The files your Russian friends told me about? Already seized. Cyber forensics teams have been dismantling your systems for the last hour." Sarah smiled grimly. "Turns out your partners really wanted you gone. They gave us everything." Vance's expression flickered. doubt creeping in. "So what now?" he asked. "You arrest me? Put me on trial? I'll claim the evidence was fabricated. My lawyers will tear you apart, and even if I'm convicted, I'll write a book. Do interviews, become a celebrity whistleblower exposing government corruption." "No, you won't." Sarah's voice was ice. "Because you're not going to trial." Vance's eyes narrowed. "What? You're already dead. Killed during apprehension when you pulled a weapon on federal agents." Sarah kept her pistol aimed at his chest. "Your body will be cremated, your story buried in classified files. No trial, no book, no legacy. Just a footnote in someone else's report." "You're bluffing. You're too much of a Boy Scout to execute someone in cold blood." "I used to be, but you changed that when you started killing my people." Sarah took a step forward. "Every soldier who died protecting your operation, every witness you silenced, every life you ruined, they're all standing here with me now, wanting justice." Vance raised his pistol higher. "Then pull the trigger. Prove you're no better than me." Sarah's finger tightened on the trigger. Behind Vance, unmarked vehicles were screaming into the airfield. FBI, federal marshals, Warren's people. But they were still too far away, still seconds from arrival, long enough for Vance to shoot, long enough for Sarah to shoot back. The moment hung suspended in rain and thunder. Then Vance smiled. "You can't do it. You're weak. Always have been." He started to squeeze his trigger. Sarah fired. The bullet caught Vance in the shoulder, spinning him around. His pistol discharged into the air, then fell from his hand. He dropped to his knees, clutching the wound. "You shot me!" "No, I stopped you." Sarah approached, kicked his pistol away. "There's a difference." The vehicles arrived, agents pouring out. Warren was among them, taking in the scene. "Suspect wounded and apprehended," Sarah reported. "Needs medical attention." Paramedics rushed forward. Vance was loaded onto a stretcher, still conscious, still defiant. "This isn't over," he said as they carried him past Sarah. "I have resources, connections. I'll be out in months." Sarah leaned close. "No, you won't, because I'm going to testify. And so is Major Garrett and Alex Reeves and every single person you tried to silence." She straightened. "You spent years building your network. I'm going to spend however long it takes tearing it down, piece by piece." Vance's expression finally cracked, fear bleeding through the arrogance. They loaded him into an ambulance, doors closing on his face. Warren walked over, looked at Sarah's bleeding shoulder. "You need medical too." "I'm fine." "You're not, but you're stubborn." Warren smiled slightly. "Good work tonight. Messy, but effective." "The messy part seems to be my specialty." They stood in the rain, watching the ambulance drive away. Sarah felt exhaustion creeping in, adrenaline finally wearing off. Her phone buzzed. Message from Martinez. "Full network exposure complete. 17 arrests already. More coming. Congressional hearing scheduled for next week." Another message from Park. "Alex is stable. Concussion and broken ribs, but he'll recover. Says he owes you a beer." And one from an unknown number. "Our arrangement is concluded. The files you agreed to protect have been secured. You kept your word. We respect that." The Russian, closing the loop. Sarah deleted the message without responding. "What was that?" Warren asked. "Nothing important." They drove back to the city in silence. Dawn was breaking when they reached the command center. Inside, the team was celebrating, analysts cheering, federal agents comparing notes, everyone riding the high of a major win. But Sarah felt hollow. They'd stopped Vance, exposed the network, saved lives. But the compromise gnawed at her. The deal she'd made with the Russians, the classified files she'd agreed to bury. She'd become what she'd sworn to fight against, someone who bent rules for the greater good. Warren found her an hour later, sitting alone in a conference room. "You did the right thing," he said. "Did I? Or did I just prove that the system's too broken to fix without becoming part of the problem?" "Maybe both." Warren sat down across from her. "But you saved lives. Alex, Major Garrett, dozens of people who would have died if Vance's dead man switch activated. That counts for something. It counts for compromise. It counts for understanding that perfect justice doesn't exist, only the best version we can manage." Warren pulled out a folder. "The DOJ wants your full testimony. They're building the prosecution, expect it to take months. Vance's lawyers are already filing motions." He said he'd be out in months. He won't. The evidence is overwhelming. He's looking at life, minimum. Probably multiple life sentences. Warren opened the folder. But there's something else. The investigation's expanding. We've identified 23 other people in his network, some high-ranking, some we never suspected. Sarah looked at the list of names. Generals, senators, corporate executives. This goes deeper than we thought. It always does. Warren closed the folder. Which is why I need you to stay involved. Lead the task force. Help us dismantle everything Vance built. I'm a nurse. Was a medic. I'm not an investigator. You're someone who can't be bought or intimidated. Someone who'll do what's right even when it costs you everything. Warren met her eyes. That's rarer than you think. Sarah thought about the last 3 years. Hiding, pretending to be weak, watching people die because she'd been too afraid to fight back. That version of her was gone. Okay, she said. I'm in. Good. Because we just got a tip. Warren pulled up his phone, showed her a message. Someone claiming to have information about Vance's offshore accounts. Wants to meet. Tomorrow. Says they'll only talk to you. Sarah studied the message. Anonymous sender. Vague details. Could be legitimate. Could be a trap. Where's the meeting? Mercy Ridge Hospital, the morgue. Sarah's blood ran cold. That's not a coincidence. No. Whoever this is knows your history, knows where you worked. Might be someone from Vance's network. Might be someone else entirely. Warren's expression was serious. Could be dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous. So you'll go? Sarah thought about Dr. Brennan, dead in his office. About Viktor Sokolov, bleeding out in the basement. About 3 years of hiding and running and pretending. She was done hiding. Yeah, I'll go. Warren nodded. I'll arrange backup, surveillance, full tactical support. No, I go alone. Sarah, whoever this is, they want to talk to me specifically. Show up with an army and they disappear. Sarah stood, wincing at the pain in her shoulder. I can handle myself. You always could. That was never the question. They spent the rest of the day preparing. Sarah gave her formal testimony to DOJ lawyers, every detail documented. Reviewed evidence with forensic teams connecting dots that had been invisible before. Checked on Alex at the hospital, found him bruised but joking, already planning his next move. You saved my ass, Alex said. Again. Keep better company and I won't have to. Where's the fun in that? Alex smiled, then turned serious. What Vance said about you being weak. You know that's bullshit, right? I know. Because you're the strongest person I've ever met. Broken, beat down, and you still kept fighting. That's not weakness. Sarah squeezed his hand. Get some rest. We've got work to do when you're healed. Can't wait. She left him sleeping and headed back to Mercy Ridge Hospital, the place where everything had started, where she'd been fired, humiliated, dismissed. It looked different now. Federal agents stationed at every entrance, news vans still camped outside. The story of the nurse who'd saved a federal agent and exposed massive corruption was everywhere. People recognized her as she walked through the halls. Staff who'd ignored her before now stared with something like awe or fear. Maybe both. Sarah didn't care. She was here for information, not vindication. The morgue was in the basement, cold and sterile. She arrived 15 minutes early, cleared the room, checked for threats. Nothing obvious. Just bodies in drawers and the smell of disinfectant. She waited. At exactly midnight, the door opened. A woman entered. Early 40s, professional appearance, carrying a briefcase. Sarah didn't recognize her. Sergeant Hayes. The woman's voice was measured, calm. Thank you for coming alone. Who are you? Someone who worked in Vance's organization. Someone who wants out. The woman set the briefcase on an examination table. I have financial records, account numbers, transfer histories, everything you need to trace the money he stole. Why give this to me? Because you can't be bought, can't be threatened. You've already lost everything that mattered to you. The woman opened the briefcase, revealed stacks of documents. I'm hoping that makes you trustworthy. Sarah approached, started scanning the documents. Bank records from the Caymans, property deeds, Shell Corporation filings, more comprehensive than anything they'd recovered from the USB drives. This is detailed, more than Vance would have shared with anyone. He didn't share it. I compiled it. Over 3 years, insurance, in case he ever turned on me. The woman's expression was unreadable. Now I'm turning it over to you. In exchange for what? Immunity. Witness protection. A chance to start over without looking over my shoulder. The woman closed the briefcase. I'll testify. Give you everyone involved. Names, dates, operations, everything. Sarah studied her. Why now? Why not earlier? Because earlier Vance was winning. Now he's not. And I'm smart enough to know when to switch sides. The woman pulled out a business card, handed it to Sarah. My lawyer's information. Contact them to arrange terms. Sarah took the card. I can't promise immunity. That's DOJ's call. But you can recommend it, and after what you've done, they'll listen. The woman was right. Sarah had leverage now, credibility, the power to influence decisions. It felt strange, wrong, almost, like she'd become part of the system she'd been fighting against. I'll make the call, Sarah said. But if you're lying, if any of this is fabricated, it's not. Check it yourself. Verify every detail. The woman moved toward the door. I want out of this life, Sergeant, same as you did 3 years ago. Give me that chance. She left before Sarah could respond. Sarah stood alone in the morgue, surrounded by the dead, holding evidence that could bring down dozens more people involved in Vance's network. Her phone rang. Warren. How'd it go? Got enough evidence to keep prosecutors busy for years. Sarah looked at the documents. We're going to need a bigger task force. Already in the works. FBI's pulling in people from white-collar crime, counterintelligence, organized crime. Warren paused. This is going to consume your life for the foreseeable future. You ready for that? Sarah thought about the question. 3 years ago, she'd wanted nothing more than to disappear, to be invisible, to pretend she'd never been Sergeant Morgan Hayes. But that woman was gone, burned away by VX gas and gunfire, and the simple realization that hiding only let the corruption spread. Yeah, she said. I'm ready. Good. Because there's one more thing. Warren's voice dropped. We arrested David Moss, the procurement officer. He's talking. Says there are people higher up the chain than Vance, people we haven't identified yet. How high? Cabinet level, maybe higher? He's scared. Says if he tells us everything, they'll kill his family. Sarah closed her eyes. Of course it went higher. Networks like this always did. Where is he now? Secure facility, under guard, waiting for you. Warren hesitated. Sarah, if what he's saying is true, if this goes all the way to the top, we're talking about dismantling power structures that have existed for decades. People will fight back, hard. Let them. You could die. I've been dying for 3 years. At least now it'll mean something. Sarah left the morgue carrying the briefcase, walking through halls where nurses whispered and doctors stared. She passed the ER where she'd saved Major Garrett's life, past Dr. Brennan's office, still sealed with crime scene tape. Outside, the rain had stopped, stars visible through breaking clouds. Her phone buzzed one more time, message from a blocked number. She opened it. A single sentence. Thank you for keeping your promise about the files, but know that we're watching, always watching. The Russians, reminding her of the deal she'd made, the evidence she'd agreed to bury. Sarah deleted the message and kept walking, because she'd learned something important over the past 3 days, something that would guide everything she did moving forward. Perfect justice was impossible, but fighting for the best version you could manage, even when it meant making impossible choices, even when it meant compromising, even when it meant becoming something you'd sworn you'd never be. That was enough. It had to be. Sarah climbed into the waiting SUV. Warren was driving. Park in the back seat, ready for whatever came next. Where to? Warren asked. Sarah looked at the briefcase full of evidence. Thought about David Moss, scared and waiting. Thought about Vance, wounded and captured but still fighting. Thought about the network that extended higher and deeper than anyone had imagined. To work, she said. We've got a lot of people to bring down. The SUV pulled away from Mercy Ridge Hospital, disappearing into the night. Behind them, in the morgue basement, a single document had been left behind, hidden under an examination table where Sarah hadn't seen it. A photograph, showing Sarah and the mysterious woman shaking hands. And in the corner, a handwritten note. Insurance, in case she forgets who she's really working for. The network was deeper than Sarah knew, and her war against it had only just begun. The photograph sat in the morgue for exactly 17 hours before a cleaning crew found it. By then, Sarah was already 3 states away, sitting across from David Moss in a windowless room that smelled like fear and cheap coffee. Moss looked worse than his file photo suggested. 52, balding, hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The kind of middle manager who'd spent his career keeping his head down, following orders, never asking questions that might derail his pension, until the questions found him anyway. I want full immunity, Moss said before Sarah even sat down. Witness protection, new identity, the whole package. That depends on what you give us, Sarah replied, setting a recorder on the table between them. And whether it's worth the cost of keeping you alive. It's worth it. Moss leaned forward, voice dropping to a whisper like the walls had ears. Senator Patricia Hargrove. She's been facilitating contracts for Vance's network for 8 years. Defense Appropriations Committee. Every fraudulent purchase went through her office. Sarah kept her expression neutral, but her mind was racing. Hargrove was a 3-term senator, former Army officer, respected on both sides of the aisle. If she was involved, the scandal would detonate like a bomb in Washington. You have proof? Moss pulled out a flash drive. Email correspondence, meeting transcripts, financial transfers linking her campaign funds to shell companies Vance controlled. His hand shook harder as he set it down. She'll deny everything, say I forged it, but the metadata doesn't lie. Sarah took the drive, turned it over in her fingers. Why come forward now? You've been complicit for years. Because I have a daughter. Moss's voice cracked. 16 years old, smart, beautiful. Wants to join the army when she graduates. He looked up, eyes red. How do I tell her I've been stealing from soldiers, selling weapons that killed Americans? How do I look at her and pretend I'm not a monster? You can't, Sarah said quietly, but you can stop being one, starting now. Moss nodded, swiping at his eyes. There's more. Cabinet-level involvement. Deputy Secretary of Defense William Kramer. He knew about everything, approved key contracts, even attended meetings with foreign buyers. Sarah's stomach dropped. Kramer was 2 steps removed from the president. If he went down, the entire administration would be dragged into the investigation. You can prove this? You can prove I was at the meetings, took notes, kept records. Moss pulled out more flash drives, a whole collection. I know how this sounds, but I'm not lying. Check everything. Verify every detail. It's all there. Sarah collected the drives, feeling the weight of what they represented. This wasn't just exposing Vance anymore. This was dismantling a network that reached into the highest levels of government. One question, she said. If you've had this evidence for years, why hide it? Why not come forward earlier? Because I was scared. Because I wanted to believe it would stop on its own. Because... Moss looked away. Because I'm a coward, and cowards don't become heroes until they run out of places to hide. Sarah understood that better than she wanted to admit. She left Moss with federal marshals and drove back to D.C. through the pre-dawn darkness. Warren called when she was 30 minutes out. We've got a problem. Another one? Senator Hargrove just held a press conference. Says she's been investigating corruption in the Pentagon for months. Claims she's about to expose a massive conspiracy. Warren's voice was tight. She's getting ahead of the story, positioning herself as the whistleblower. Sarah's hands tightened on the wheel. She knows we have Moss. Has to. Someone tipped her off. Warren paused. Could be the woman from the morgue. Could be someone else in the network. Either way, Hargrove's trying to control the narrative before we can build a case. Then we release Moss's evidence now, show everyone she's lying. DOJ wants to wait. Verify everything first. Build an airtight prosecution. By the time they finish verifying, Hargrove will have the entire media convinced she's the hero and we're trying to silence her. Sarah took an exit ramp too fast. We need to move faster than the system allows. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we leak it. Not officially, not through DOJ channels, but get it to journalists who will actually investigate instead of just repeating press releases. Warren was quiet for a long moment. That's a career ender for both of us. Good thing I never cared about careers. She heard him sigh. Then, send me the files. I know a reporter, someone who won't sit on this. Sarah pulled over, transferred everything from Moss's flash drives to an encrypted server, sent Warren the access codes. Then she kept driving, watching the sun rise over the capital city, turning monuments and government buildings gold. Somewhere in one of those buildings, Senator Hargrove was probably rehearsing more lies. Deputy Secretary Kramer was probably destroying evidence, and a dozen other conspirators were probably making plans to disappear. But Sarah had learned something important over the past week. The truth had a momentum all its own. Once it started moving, all the power and money and connections in the world couldn't stop it. You just had to be brave enough to give it a push. Her phone buzzed. Message from Martinez. News just broke. Major investigative piece dropped on 3 networks simultaneously. Hargrove's denial's already falling apart. Social media is going insane. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Another message, this one from Alex. Saw the news? You're kicking ass. Buy you that beer when this is over? She replied, make it whiskey and you've got a deal. The city was waking up when Sarah reached the federal building where Warren had set up their task force headquarters. Inside, chaos reigned. Analysts running between computers, FBI agents coordinating raids, prosecutors preparing warrants. Warren met her at the door. It's working. Hargrove's office is in full damage control. Kramer's lawyers are already reaching out about cooperation agreements. How many others are we looking at? Current count? 37 arrests over the next 72 hours, including 2 generals, 4 congressmen, and half a dozen defense contractors. Warren pulled up a chart showing the network's organizational structure. We're cutting off every branch, salting the earth so nothing grows back. Sarah studied the chart. Names and faces of people who'd spent years profiting from corruption while soldiers died in the field, while witnesses were silenced, while people like her were forced into hiding for doing the right thing. What about Vance? Surgery went well. He's in federal custody, maximum security medical facility, already talking to his lawyers about a deal. No deals. DOJ might not have a choice. He's threatening to expose classified operations if we prosecute fully. National security implications. Sarah felt rage building in her chest. So he gets to negotiate? After everything? He gets to try. Doesn't mean we have to agree. Warren's expression was hard. But the reality is, some fights don't end with the villain in chains. They end with compromise, with ugly truths about how power actually works. I hate that you're right. Me too. They worked through the day and into the evening, coordinating arrests, processing evidence, building cases that would stand up in court. Sarah gave 3 more depositions, reviewed dozens of documents, identified patterns in the network's operations that had been invisible before. At some point, Park brought her food she didn't remember eating. Martinez updated her on media coverage that was spiraling beyond anyone's control. The story had gone global. International agencies were opening their own investigations into arms sales in their jurisdictions. By midnight, Sarah's eyes were blurring. Warren ordered her to get some sleep. Can't, she said. Too much to do. You're no good to anyone if you collapse. He pointed at a cot in the corner. 4 hours. That's an order. Sarah wanted to argue, but her body made the decision for her. She stumbled to the cot and was unconscious before her head hit the pillow. She woke to someone shaking her shoulder. Park, his expression urgent. What's wrong? Vance's lawyers just filed an emergency motion. They're claiming he's being denied medical treatment, trying to get him transferred to a civilian hospital. Sarah was on her feet immediately. That's an extraction attempt. Get him to a civilian facility and his people can break him out. FBI knows they're denying the motion, but it's going to a judge in the morning. Park handed her a tablet. There's more. The woman from the morgue? We identified her. Sarah looked at the screen. Professional headshot of the woman who'd given her the financial evidence. The caption read, Deputy Director Rachel Voss, Defense Intelligence Agency. The same Rachel Voss who'd been on Warren's team, the forensic accountant who'd been analyzing financial records. Sarah's world tilted. She was already working with us. Was, past tense, she disappeared 6 hours ago, left her office, drove home, packed a bag, and vanished. Park pulled up surveillance footage. Last ping on her phone was near Dulles Airport, private terminal. She played both sides. Gave us real evidence to buy credibility, then fed information back to the network. Sarah felt sick. The photograph in the morgue, that was insurance. Proof she'd been cooperating with me in case the network needed leverage later. Warren's tearing apart everything she touched, checking every file, every analysis, seeing if she corrupted any evidence. Sarah grabbed her jacket. Where's Warren now? Conference room with the FBI director. She found them in heated discussion, voices echoing off glass walls. The FBI director was a severe woman in her 50s, known for playing political games better than anyone in Washington. Can't just arrest a sitting senator without ironclad evidence, she was saying. We have ironclad evidence, Warren shot back. Emails, financial records, testimony from multiple witnesses, all of which could be challenged. Defense attorneys will argue entrapment, fabrication, political motivation. The director shook her head. We need more time. Time for what? For them to destroy more evidence? For more people to disappear like Voss? Warren saw Sarah and gestured her in. Tell her. Tell her what happens if we don't move now. Sarah stepped forward. They're already moving. Vance is trying to get transferred. Voss is gone. Hargrove's building a media defense. Every hour we wait, they get stronger and we get weaker. The director studied her. You're the nurse, the one who started all this. I'm the one who refused to look away when people were dying. Sarah held her gaze. And I'm telling you that if we play by their rules, follow their timeline, work within their system, we lose. Because the system's designed to protect people like them. So what do you suggest? Arrest them all, tonight. Simultaneous raids on everyone we've identified. Don't give them time to coordinate. Don't give them warning. Just execute the warrants and let the evidence speak for itself. The director was quiet for a long moment. Then she pulled out her phone. Get me strike teams for 37 locations. Full tactical support. We move in 2 hours. Warren's eyes widened slightly. Sarah felt her heart hammering. They were really doing this. The next 2 hours were controlled chaos. FBI teams gearing up, marshals coordinating logistics, prosecutors on standby to process arrests. Sarah watched it all from the command center, tracking each team's position on digital maps. At exactly 3:47 a.m., the raids began. Senator Hargrove was arrested at her Georgetown townhouse, dragged out in a bathrobe while cameras she'd invited for a morning interview captured everything. Deputy Secretary Kramer was taken at his office, still destroying files when agents breached the door. General after general, contractor after contractor, all pulled from their comfortable lives and forced to face what they'd done. Sarah watched the feeds, feeling no satisfaction, just exhaustion and the grim certainty that this would never truly end. Cut off these heads, and new ones would grow. Maybe not immediately, maybe not the same network, but power and greed always found new ways to corrupt. Still, for tonight, justice was moving forward. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Hello? Sergeant Hayes? The voice was Vance's, weak but defiant. Enjoying your victory? How did you get this number? I have resources you don't know about, people who are still loyal. He coughed, pain evident. You think you've won, but this changes nothing. The network's bigger than you comprehend, older, more essential. Then I'll keep tearing it down until there's nothing left. You'll become what you're fighting against. It's inevitable. The power you're wielding right now, the choices you're making, you're already compromising, already cutting deals, already deciding who gets punished and who gets protected. Vance's laugh was bitter. Welcome to the machine, Sergeant. You're one of us now. Sarah wanted to deny it, wanted to insist she was different, but she thought about the Russian files she'd agreed to bury. Thought about the photograph in the morgue that might still be used against her. Thought about all the small compromises she'd made in the name of the greater good. Maybe, she said quietly, but at least I'm trying to break it instead of profiting from it. That's got to count for something. Keep telling yourself that. See where it gets you. The line went dead. Sarah stood there, phone in hand, while around her the arrest continued. She thought about 3 years of hiding. Thought about 8 months at Mercy Ridge, pretending to be weak. Thought about Major Garrett on a gurney, dying from nerve agent exposure. Thought about the choice she'd made to fight back, knowing it would cost everything. Was it worth it? The door opened. Alex limped in, still bandaged but mobile. Heard you could use some company. Shouldn't you be in a hospital bed? Probably, but I got bored. He sat down, wincing. Watched the news. Pretty impressive, what you've done. We've done. This was never just me. No, but you were the one who couldn't stay quiet, who couldn't just let it go. Alex smiled. That's always been your problem. and your strength. They sat in silence, watching arrests happen across the city. Outside, dawn was breaking again. How many dawns had it been since this started? Sarah had lost count. What happens now? Alex asked. Trials, testimony, years of legal battles. Sarah rubbed her eyes. And then probably more corruption to uncover, because this never really ends. Cheerful. Realistic. Alex stood, moved to the window. You know what I think? I think you're so focused on the fight that you've forgotten there's supposed to be something after. Some reason we do this besides just doing it. What are you talking about? I'm talking about life, Sarah. About actually living instead of just surviving. He turned to face her. You exposed the conspiracy, brought down the bad guys, saved my ass and a lot of other people's asses. That's huge. But what are you doing with the rest of your life? Sarah didn't have an answer. She'd spent 3 years hiding from her past. Spent the last week fighting to expose the truth. But she hadn't thought about what came after. What she actually wanted beyond justice and revenge. I don't know, she admitted. Then figure it out. Because the world needs people like you. Not just as investigators or soldiers or whatever, but as people. Living examples that doing the right thing doesn't always destroy you. He left her with that thought. The arrests continued through the morning. By noon, all 37 targets were in custody. The news was wall-to-wall coverage. Congressional emergency sessions, Pentagon in lockdown, international allies demanding explanations. Sarah gave one final deposition, then Warren found her in the hallway. It's done, he said. Everyone we identified is either arrested or being processed. Evidence is secured. Prosecutions are moving forward. What about Vance? His lawyers are still trying to negotiate, but DOJ isn't budging. He's looking at multiple life sentences. Warren paused. He'll probably die in prison. Sarah nodded. She should feel something, triumph, satisfaction, closure, but all she felt was tired. What about me? What happens to Sarah Carter now? Warren pulled out an envelope. Official commendation from the president, job offer from the FBI, full pension restoration from the Army, retroactive to your discharge, and a formal apology for everything that happened 3 years ago. Sarah took the envelope but didn't open it. And the evidence I buried? The Russian files. What Russian files? Warren's expression was carefully neutral. I don't recall any such thing in the official record. So they were going to pretend it never happened. Easier that way. Cleaner. Sarah felt the weight of that compromise settling on her shoulders. One more thing, Warren said. Mercy Ridge Hospital's been asking about you. The board wants to offer you your job back, with a promotion, head of emergency services. Sarah laughed, surprised. They fired me, and now they want to hire you back. Funny how that works. Warren smiled. You don't have to decide now. Take some time. Figure out what you want. What she wanted. Alex's question echoing again. Sarah left the federal building and drove through Washington traffic, watching the city move around her. People going to work, living their lives, completely unaware of how close everything had come to falling apart. She ended up at Arlington National Cemetery, walking between white headstones until she found the section where they'd buried the soldiers from her old unit, the ones who'd testified for her and died for it. She stood there for a long time, not praying. She'd lost that habit years ago, but just remembering. Their faces, their voices, the way they'd believed in doing the right thing even when it cost them everything. I got him, she said quietly. Vance and everyone who worked with him. It's not perfect, it's not complete, but it's something. The stones offered no response, but Sarah felt lighter somehow, like she'd finally delivered on a promise she'd been carrying for 3 years. Her phone buzzed. Message from Vanessa, the young nurse from Mercy Ridge. Saw you on the news. You're amazing. When you coming back? ER's a mess without you. Sarah smiled, typed back. Soon. Need to tie up some loose ends first. Another message, this one from Martinez. Task force wants you to stay on permanently. Lead investigator position. Interested? And one from Park. Drinks tonight to celebrate? You earned it. Sarah stood there, surrounded by the dead, holding a phone full of possibilities for the living. 3 years ago, she'd thought her life was over, that being Morgan Hayes meant being a soldier and nothing else. When that was taken away, she'd tried to become someone smaller, quieter, invisible. But invisibility was its own kind of death. She'd learned something these past few days that she wished she'd understood earlier. You didn't become strong by hiding from who you were. You became strong by accepting all of it, the compromises, the failures, the moments of weakness alongside the moments of courage, and choosing to keep moving forward anyway. Perfect justice didn't exist. Perfect people didn't exist. There was only the messy, complicated reality of doing your best with what you had. And sometimes that was enough. Sarah walked back to her car, pulled out her phone, and called Mercy Ridge Hospital. The administrator answered on the second ring. "This is Sarah Carter. I heard you wanted to talk." 2 weeks later, Sarah stood in the Mercy Ridge emergency room wearing scrubs again. But this time, the name tag read Sarah Carter, RN, Head of Emergency Services. The staff watched her differently now, not with contempt or dismissal, but with something like respect. Or maybe fear. She wasn't sure which and didn't particularly care. Dr. Rashid approached, extending his hand. "Welcome back. We're glad to have you. Thanks for the opportunity. You earned it. What you did?" He shook his head. "Most people would have stayed quiet, kept their heads down. I tried that. Didn't work out so well." Vanessa appeared, smiling wide. "Boss, where do you want me?" "Trauma Bay 3. Incoming MVA. 5 minutes out." Sarah checked the board. "And Vanessa?" "I'm not your boss. I'm just the person making sure nobody drops IV bags." Vanessa laughed, then got serious. "For what it's worth, you were always too good for how they treated you. I should have said something, should have stood up for you. You were scared, I understand." Sarah squeezed her shoulder. "But next time someone's being mistreated, don't stay quiet, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard." "I won't, promise." The ambulance arrived. Sarah fell into the rhythm of emergency medicine, assessing injuries, barking orders, moving between patients with the efficiency of someone who'd done this in war zones and understood that every second mattered. It felt right. Being back in medicine, saving lives instead of taking them, building instead of destroying. But she hadn't abandoned the other work. The task force was still active, still hunting down remaining members of Vance's network. Sarah consulted remotely, reviewed evidence during her off hours, testified when needed. She'd found a balance, or something close to it. Late that night, after her shift ended, Sarah found Alex waiting in the parking lot. He'd healed up well, back to full strength. "Thought you might need that whiskey," he said, holding up a bottle. They sat on the hood of her car, passing the bottle back and forth, watching the city lights. "Vance's trial starts next month," Alex said. "You ready for that?" "Ready as I'll ever be." "Think he'll take a plea?" "I think he'll fight until the end. That's what people like him do." Sarah took a drink. "But it doesn't matter. The evidence is overwhelming. He's finished." "And what about you? Are you finished?" Sarah considered the question. "I'm getting started. Turns out there's a lot of work to do in this world, a lot of people who need someone to fight for them. Just don't forget to fight for yourself too sometimes. Working on it." They sat in comfortable silence. Sarah thought about how far she'd come from that rainy night when she'd been fired and humiliated. From the moment when military helicopters had landed and everything changed. She'd lost her anonymity, lost her quiet life. But she'd gained something more important, the certainty that she could face the worst the world had to offer and still come out standing. Her phone buzzed. Message from Warren. Senator Hargrove just pleaded guilty. Full cooperation in exchange for reduced sentence. We're getting 3 more names from her testimony. Progress. Slow and imperfect, but real. "You ever think about what you'd be doing if none of this had happened?" Alex asked. "If you just stayed hidden, stayed invisible?" Sarah thought about it. Imagined an alternate version of herself, still working at Mercy Ridge under a fake name, still swallowing abuse from people like Dr. Brennan, still pretending to be weak. "I'd be dying slowly instead of living," she said. "Sometimes the safe choice is the one that kills you." Alex nodded. "Cheers to that." They touched the bottle together, a toast to survival and justice, and the messy, complicated work of trying to do the right thing in a broken world. Below them, the emergency room lights blazed. Ambulances coming and going, people being saved, lives continuing. And somewhere in a maximum security federal prison, Colonel Richard Vance was learning that power and connections couldn't protect you forever. That eventually, someone would stand up and refuse to look away. Someone would decide that the truth mattered more than career or safety or comfort. Someone would choose to fight. Sarah climbed off the hood, handed the bottle back to Alex. I've got early shift tomorrow. Need to get some sleep. You're really doing this? The hospital and the task force, both? Why not? Spent 3 years doing nothing. Time to make up for lost time. She drove home to the small apartment she'd rented, nothing fancy but clean and hers. Inside, she found a package waiting, no return address. She opened it carefully, half expecting a threat. Instead, she found a framed newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Nurse exposes massive Pentagon corruption, dozens arrested." And below it, a handwritten note. "Thank you for your service, from the families of Major Garrett's team." Sarah hung it on the wall, right next to her medical license and the photo of her old unit. Reminders of who she'd been, who she'd become, who she was still becoming. That night she dreamed of the future instead of the past, of emergency rooms full of patients she'd save, of courtrooms where she'd testify, of a world slowly, painfully learning that corruption had consequences and silence had costs. She woke before dawn, made coffee, reviewed testimony notes while the city slept. At 6:47 a.m., her phone rang. "Martinez, we've got another lead. Someone from Vance's network wants to talk. Says they have information about operations in Eastern Europe." Sarah smiled. "Set up the meeting. I'll be there in an hour." Because the work was never finished. The fight was never over. There would always be another corruption to expose, another injustice to fight, another person who needed someone willing to stand up when everyone else stayed silent. But that was okay. Sarah had learned to find purpose in the fight itself, had learned that strength wasn't about never falling down. It was about getting back up again and again, no matter how many times the world tried to keep you there. She'd been the quiet nurse, the invisible woman, the one everyone underestimated and dismissed. Now she was something else entirely. Not perfect, not unbreakable, not some heroic figure from a story, just someone who'd decided that the truth was worth fighting for, that people were worth protecting, that doing the right thing mattered, even when, especially when, it cost you everything. Sarah finished her coffee, grabbed her badge and weapon, and headed out into the morning. The sun was rising over Washington, burning away the darkness. And she had work to do. The end. They'd mocked the quiet nurse, until she reminded the world that the most dangerous people aren't the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who refuse to stay silent when it matters most.